Mini camp or conversations, okay? It is mandatory that Sterling makes his way to Friday Cuts in the next 4 hours.
I've been good, I feel like. I was not on last week's Cuts.
Oh, I mean, yesterday you had a couple
feel
there,
like,
brother.
what are you talking about?
You had a couple there yesterday, so I think...
What are you talking about?
I think you were a volume shooter yesterday. I feel like you were trying to...
I forgot for a second, and I was agreeing with Sterling, and then Jason reminded me.
Wait, did I J.R. Smith it yesterday?
I don't know if J.R. Smith, more of like a Sean Livingston third quarter.
Yeah, the mid-range game.
Yeah.
Mid-range game.
There you go.
Not Jalen Williams last night.
No, he was phenomenal. He was absolutely awesome. Let's get into the show. 913-912-4810. We will mandatorily talk about the Chiefs, but we'll hear from them coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. Adam Teicher, an hour from now at ESPN, out at Chiefs practice, so hanging out with us before they go and watch the Chiefs on the field for the practices, and that practice will get over at 1 o'clock, and we'll talk with him coming up at 11 o'clock as he gets ready to see what's going on out on the field, and we'll find out what Travis looks like and if Trey is there. Les Norman joins us at noon, breaking the norm. We'll talk some Royals baseball with him. We'll talk maybe some college baseball with him. We'll do a number of things with Les Norman. And then, as I said, the Chiefs press conferences. 913-912-4810 is the text line. 913-912-4810. Let's talk about the NBA Finals last night. Oklahoma City pulls away and wins 120-109. The Pacers made it close. Thought maybe are they going to pull off one of those miracle games again? Problem is that those miracle games included Tyrese Halliburton. And last night, it was a rough game for Halliburton, both score sheet and physically for him. And the question now will be, moving forward, what the CAF is for Game 6, heading back to Indiana. If they survive that, what the CAF is like for Game 7. 4 points, 0 of 6 from the field, 7 rebounds, 6 assists in 34 minutes. The Oklahoma City Thunder flipped the script on the Pacers as to who the more physical team was, because the Pacers had been bodying up SGA, and Nembhard had been just being a pest and keeping SGA from really getting into his game for the most part. And Chet Holmgren was getting pushed around, which typically happens, and Hartenstein, playing the number of minutes that he plays, but it felt like Indiana was the more aggressive team, and they weren't allowing turnovers to turn into points, which is what Oklahoma City does so well. And then last night, you see Oklahoma City just be the more physical team with them. Nembhard wasn't able to be the physical player. Dort was incredibly physical last night. Oklahoma City overall, Hartenstein, when he was in there setting screens, although McConnell played, phenomenal basketball and helping bridge the gap from Halliburton not playing to him putting up the numbers that he was putting up and going after Alex Caruso. And so, what did he end up with, 18 points last night in like 20 minutes?
T.J. McConnell's a interesting cat, man.
Yeah, man.
You never understand how he's as good as he is, but he is a pest. He's been in the NBA a long time now. I remember him with the Sixers. He becomes a fan favorite, and I'm so glad he's been able to stick around.
Did you like him when he was with the Sixers?
Yeah, we did. But
did you cross paths?
Yeah, he was there when we were there. I mean, that was the dark days. But because of the dark days, TJ got a chance, and he was a guy who was going to leave it all out there. You saw it last night. You mentioned, obviously, Tyrese Halliburton. We'll find out. It's why I think it's so hard for people to put him in that, superstar category, because superstars don't typically have games like that. Now, obviously, injury included. You got to tip your cap for him trying to play through it. He did his best. Still played 34 minutes. Still had, 7 assists, all that, or 6 assists, 7 rebounds. But he was not helping his team out there last night. McConnell was obviously going to be the guy that made the biggest difference for Indiana. I'm just so impressed by, again, you mentioned the physicality. Welcome to the Dortcher chamber, because Lou Dort's Dortcher chamber, baby. He is so physical, and what he can bring. The depth was on display for both teams, but it really was the OKC Thunder in this one. We talked about it, obviously, with Ryland Stiles. It's one of those situations where both teams are very deep, but which bench is going to produce the most?
Yeah.
You didn't need a ton for the bench in OKC in this game. You still got 14 from Aaron Wiggins. Case and Wallace gave you, 4 or 5 from the field.
Well, they were 7 threes combined from Wiggins and Wallace.
7 of 11. I mean, and that's what it comes down
The
to.
killer dubs. Splash Brothers, people would call them.
They have a lot of Williams on this team. Some of you, Kenrick Williams. You also have another Jalen Williams. 2 Jalen Williams on this roster, by the way. But the one that put up 40 was the difference in this one. Allows SGA to almost focus more on defense. When you have another guy who can give you 40 points, 30 points, SGA can almost say, all right, you can be the offensive focal point this game. Let me go be a menace to someone else on defense, because you can't really do both in today's NBA.
Well, he gets his 2 steals late in the fourth quarter, too.
Yes.
I mean, the turnovers really bit the Pacers late for Oklahoma City to pull away. And, one of my, takeaways of this series, and now that Oklahoma City has a 3-2 lead, and, we'll see if this thing does end in 6 coming up on Thursday
the 19th, Thursday.
So Thursday, that they play there in Indiana. That thing starts at 7:30. Of course, you can hear that right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Just as you heard the game last night, a pivotal Game 5. We talked about it. We said Game 5s are so pivotal when they're tied 2-2.
How pivotal will Game 6 be, though?
I mean, It's got to be so pivotal. It's a must-win for the Pacers.
Oh, yeah.
We finally have a must-win game.
It's not Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals where they're like, hey, this is a must-win game.
It's the first must-win game of the NBA Finals that we've seen. A must-win game coming up on Thursday for the Indiana Pacers. And then if Indiana wins, you know what that makes for the Game 7? It's a must-win game for both.
A must-win pivotal Game 7.
Oh, Game 7s are so pivotal. Such a pivotal game, Game 7, because it's literally pivots between who wins the championship.
It's very Kevin McHale.
There are no ties in Game 7.
Game 7, Kevin McHale.
Pivotal.
No, a lot of pivots.
It's Ross and friends. Pivot!
That's
Pivot!
Right. I thought that was overdone, so I thought I'd go with the NBA, a guy who had a lot of pivots. George Mikan.
Okay.
Very George Mikan.
Very good. Let's talk about this Oklahoma City team and a small market team getting to this position that they were the heavy favorites, and I think they'll find a way to win one of the next 2 games against Indiana. They've won the last 2, and we talked with Ryland Stiles, who said Oklahoma City needs to win the next 2 games or they would lose the series. Indiana just needed to win one of the next 2, and he thought they would win the series. Oklahoma City needed to win the next 2 to win. They did win the next 2 games, so they're up 3-2. And how this team was sort of built from a small market standpoint. And baseball and basketball are different. So I'm not going to relate it to, hey, here's what the Royals can do based on what Oklahoma City can do or did, because it's different. And the salary cap and the aprons and things like that. And you can get 7,000 first-round draft picks, and baseball doesn't allow you to trade draft picks, which is dumb, except for the comp picks and things like that. I think the new CBA should be allowed to trade draft picks. You can trade money, for your draft pool and things like that. But so we see the impact of what Paul George has on both these teams, and the impact that Paul George has for the Indiana Pacers in trading Paul George to the Thunder.
Yeah.
To get Sabonis and Oladipo, and then trading Sabonis to get Halliburton, but when the Oklahoma City Thunder traded for Paul George, and this is a little bit of a comparison to what's going on with Kevin Durant right now, and people are saying Kevin Durant wants nothing to do with Minnesota. Kevin Durant is not going to be traded to Memphis because he'll refuse to be traded to Memphis. Some of these small market teams, the teams that don't have the money that we see with Golden State or the Knicks or the Lakers or the Clippers or even Phoenix.
Even the prestige, the historic prestige.
Right. And so when Sam Presti traded for Paul George, it was viewed as a foolish move because you're a small market team giving up a couple of rising stars for a guy that, helped you get to the finals in the Western Conference, but he only had a year left on his deal. And you're a small market team, and it was his dream to go to the Clippers or go to LA. Like, this is dumb. You're giving up guys for a rental player. You're going to get a year and a half maybe of Paul George. And if he's healthy, you're going to get a year and a half. What if he gets injured? You've got nothing out of that. And then they convinced him to sign. There is the Trent Williams aspect here that the San Francisco 49ers traded for Trent Williams from Washington. The Chiefs did not. But you know what happened when he was a free agent? Chiefs wanted him pretty badly. And you know what he did? He re-signed in San Francisco, the team that traded for him, the team that he was familiar with. So Paul George stays and re-signs in Oklahoma City. And credit them for signing him and paying the money there to keep Paul George around. But then when push came to shove and you saw that things weren't going that way and he wanted to go to the Clippers and join Kawhi, you had the power and the high ground in the negotiations for Paul George. And at the time, all of the draft picks were viewed as the key part of Paul George. SGA was a good player, but it wasn't viewed as this trade is around SGA. You're getting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Paul George. You're getting 7 first-rounders. You're getting the opportunity in 2025 and 2027 to flip picks with the Clippers. And who knows what the Clippers are going to look like in 2025 and 2027. You're also getting other first-rounders. And so we look at what this Oklahoma City team is, and they've got SGA and Jalen Williams specifically from Paul George.
Yes.
They have the number 15 pick in this year's draft, and they've also used their right to flip with the Clippers to move up to number 24 in this year's draft, still from Paul George. They took on an expiring contract from the Mavericks to get Cason Wallace, because the Mavericks took Cason Wallace. The Thunder wanted Wallace, but they were 2 picks behind Dallas. Dallas wanted Lively, but they wanted to get rid of an expiring contract. I don't even remember who it was at the time. It was a non-player. And so they take Cason Wallace. The Thunder take Derek Lively. They're willing to eat more money to get the player that they want. So a small market team takes on the Paul George contract and pays him, and then takes on an expiring contract to get Cason Wallace, a player who they would have needed to trade it up a couple of picks to get. So they get him by just taking on an expiring contract. They draft Chet Holmgren in that same draft as Jalen Williams. And then, by the way, they take Jalen Williams a year before Cason Wallace. But SGA and Jalen Williams are direct results of Paul George, because the Jalen Williams pick is the one that the Clippers gave them in the 2022 draft.
Yeah.
So they've got Chet and Jalen Williams in that draft, but Jalen Williams specifically from the Clippers. And if they don't make the trade for Paul George as a small market team that people said this is dumb because you're going to lose him, so you're giving up Sabonis and Oladipo for essentially in a year and a half nothing, they convinced him to stay and sign and then traded him. And at the time, Sam Presti said, the quote when they were trading for Paul George, and they re-signed Paul George, and people were like, well, you made this trade. People didn't think you were going to. And he said, scared money don't make none. So this was part of the rebuild. How do we get this team to be at that level? Well, we're going to bring in Paul George, and he's going to lead us there. It's not working out. We're going to have to revamp everything. We got to start over. And how do we start over?
They pivoted.
They pivoted by trading Paul George. And then you have to maximize the value you get. They could have missed on Jalen Williams. They could have taken, this is no shot. I'm just using a local player that was taken a couple of picks after. Actually, I don't even remember who was taken right after. The Charlotte Hornets took somebody that I can't remember who it was. The Memphis player right after Jalen Williams. But like Ochai was a couple of picks after.
Sure.
Ochai was a phenomenal player. You get a shooter. Hey, you know what? Chet Holmgren, big guy. SGA, your point guard. You bring in Ochai. Now you got a shooter to go along. Boy, you're really building that team. And they took an overall scorer. But you've got SGA. What are you doing? No, you're going to bring in a guy that was, maximizing possession percentage at Santa. Say that 3 times fast. Maximizing possession percentage at Santa Clara. With SGA, that's going to be the main and primary ball handler. What are you doing? We're taking the best player that's going to be a scorer, and we'll figure it out, because this is the best player we think that's on the board, and the guy shoots over 40% from 3. He's got a mid-range game, and his body is still growing, and he's going to be a man when it comes to finishing at the rim, which he's got a specialty of doing through contact. Well, he did it at Santa Clara. We think it translates. You got to be right. And they were, because it has translated. But it's not just you were there with the process.
It has not worked.
Because
trade Paul George.
Right, because they didn't maximize the value of the picks. They didn't get the picks right, I should say. If you get the picks right, it looks smart. the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill, it looks like they got the picks right. And the value
Yes.
of spending the money that they would have spent on Tyreek Hill on different players. So trading Tyreek Hill is a smart move. If they would have taken Kyer Elam and not Trent McDuffie, that's what you got for Tyreek Hill. Really? And then spent the money, poorly on different places, You didn't even sign Chris Jones? I thought you were going to do either Tyreek Hill or Chris Jones. Well, you were allowed to then re-sign Chris Jones because you had the extra money, and you did that. Maximizing and getting it right is a big part of the strategy. It doesn't make the process wrong, literally the process for Philadelphia, but the process of trading the pick and being able to utilize money elsewhere. We'll see what happens in Boston by using the money for Rafael Devers.
Sure.
And the, quote, alignment that they kept talking about yesterday. He wasn't an alignment, or our organization's alignment. I think they said, who was it that used alignment 9 different times in the press conference yesterday for the Boston Red Sox? But it was Sam Presti saying, we're a small market team and we're going to take the risk. We're going to trade for Paul George. Didn't work out, so we're going to move him. We think SGA is a rising star. We're taking Jalen Williams over some of these other guys that are available. I went back and watched it last night because I was curious. And this is not a shot at Jay Billis. This is how tough the draft is. Jalen Williams at the pick number 12, I think is where he was taken, was not in Jay Billis's top 10 available. Top 10 still available of the picks. Doesn't mean that Jay Billis is an idiot. It was just how he ranked. That was his particular ranking of different players.
It was a Raiders pick, but if the Raiders actually got it right, right? That the Raiders, no one knew. The Raiders do their own thing.
Wow, we didn't expect Jalen Williams to go here.
Clyland Farrell, why is he drafted here?
Leatherwood, he's like a second-round guard. Why are you taking him at number 16? This is weird. Go ahead.
But I think to your point, getting it right is the biggest reason why it's worked for OKC and why everyone's okay with it.
OKC with it.
Because the Sixers had the strategy somewhat beforehand. They just were horrendous. And some of it was bad luck, but also it's coaching. You have 2 guys you drafted forget how to shoot a basketball. Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons.
Yeah, that's...
I mean, the name's basketball. That's
is tough.
a pretty big thing.
If you can't shoot, it's tough to play in the NBA.
But also you drafted a guy first overall who doesn't care about basketball, and Ben Simmons. So that's also on you. Should have been easier.
Yeah.
You had 1-1. OKC didn't have 1-1 necessarily. It wasn't like they had back-to-back years of, we got the first. Jalen Williams was 12. 12.
Yeah, right.
You had 1-1. And you look at Boston, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. So that's the easy. You missed it. You drafted Kyer Elam. They drafted McDuffie, but you had the chance to get McDuffie. Then you decide, hey, we are going to sign Tobias Harris. One of the worst contracts in the NBA.
It's rough.
And then you finally get out of that contract, and what do? Let's do Paul George. The same player at this point in their career. It makes no sense. The one thing they got right was we're not going to trade Tyrese Maxey for James Harden. That was the one thing they got right because Tyrese Maxey looks like a dude, and James Harden is not anymore.
Yeah.
But that's what it comes down to is OKC and Sam Presti got it right. They had a process, and their process worked. I'm ready to say it worked even if they were to lose these next 2 games. Their process worked. The Sixers have not because they built it on the back of 2 guys who can't shoot, and a guy who's always injured, has perpetually been injured, and you still have tried to build around that. Clearly isn't going to work. At some point, the Sixers needed to pivot. They never did. OKC did. That's the best point I think you made was they pivoted. When Paul George wasn't going to be the game changer, the take him to the promised land, they changed on the fly. The Sixers are still stuck in 2016, and that's the result that you're going to have.
Yeah, I think I said finals, but was it they got upset by somebody. I can't remember who it was, but it doesn't matter. Either way, it wasn't going to work, and they traded Paul George, and they got what they got out of it, and they're still reaping the benefits. Again, pick number 15 and pick number 24 this year for Oklahoma City, still for Paul George. It ain't exactly Bobby Bonilla getting the money from the Mets.
Yeah.
But they could win the NBA championship this year and then have an extra first-round pick this year and swapping with the Clippers still from the trade that they had with Paul George. They could win the championship and still be adding on to that team that just won a championship. Now, the apron and everything that's going on in the NBA, can they keep these guys? I would, if I was Oklahoma City, I'd trust that Sam Presti is going to be able to figure it out. And maybe this is where, you move some pieces and you build around Jalen Williams. I don't know. SGA's an MVP. They've got him. Like, what Sam Presti's going to do, we'll find out. They've got other draft picks, as we mentioned, but they've got the league MVP, and they've got a guy that just dropped 40 in the game. And Benedict Mathurin had himself an NBA Finals game in, what was it, Game 3? Game 2, Game 3, when Mathurin went off. So this is not a, boy, how dumb Indiana is, but they took Mathurin 8 spots ahead of Jalen Williams.
Game 4.
So Game 4, he had a great game. I got it right. Like I said, Game 1, 2, or 3. Game 4. Literally the previous game. But Mathurin was taken before Jalen Williams in that same draft. It's a pretty big switch. It's a McDuffie-Kyrie Elam type deal. You take McDuffie and the other team takes Kyrie Elam, and it's just different. And by the way, Mathurin is not Kyrie Elam, so I'm not trying to say that. But the Pacers take Jalen Williams and Mathurin is on Oklahoma City. Things might be different at this point. You just never know what's happening in the draft at that particular time. You find out. But also, if teams thought that Jalen Williams was going to grow into this, then
like
he would have gone.
Giannis.
Yeah,
It's Giannis. It's Nikola Jokic, and you're like, how do they go?
Right.
How did Giannis go 15 or Jokic went like
How did Brunson
30?
go in the second round? If Brunson was going to be this, how did he go in the second
Oh,
round?
I know how he went the
Well,
second
he's
round.
small. Okay, well, cool, he's small. But he's got an instinctual gift of hitting these different, difficult shots, contorting his body certain ways, and finishing. And he's always been a stud player every step along the way for him, whether it was AAU, high school, college. He's grown into the man early on.
Yeah.
And he's done that in the NBA too.
Yeah, Jokic was second round, 41st overall.
Yeah.
And there was still that talk about who they're going to keep, Josef Nurkic or Jokic. And there was
Nurkic or Jokic? Who are you going to go with, Nurkic or Jokic?
And there's
I don't
a
know.
huge debate because a lot of people wanted Josef Nurkic.
Sure.
A lot of weird names. It's tough. But then he went to Portland and they kept Jokic, and they made the right decision.
All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come
Who's
back.
on first?
We'll talk about the decision that may be ahead of J.J. Piccolo as this Royals team embarks on an incredibly tough stretch of baseball over the next 25 games before the All-Star break, which could be the deciding factor of who's buying, who's selling, who's holding. Buster Olney, that you'll hear on Thursday morning on A New Day, wrote about GMs with the most pressure coming up at the trade deadline. Who was on that list? Is J.J. Piccolo on the list? And if he is, what did he write about it? We'll do that coming up next. Lugo will be taking on Jack Leiter tonight. I believe that's Al Leiterson. Jack Leiter. It's what he was known as when he pitched at Vanderbilt, when he was going to be the number 1 pick. It's like, hey, that's who's on the mound? Al Leiterson. Oh, really? Al Leiterson's pitching for Vanderbilt? That's pretty cool. Yeah. Hold on, his name's Jack. What are you talking about? How's it Jack Leiter? Well, he's Al Leiter's son. Oh, Al Leiterson. Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Isn't he Jack Leiter Jr. though somehow? Actually, I'm not. That actually wasn't a bit.
There's a difference. It's Leiter's brother is the guy that pitched for the A's.
Okay.
Yeah, that's I believe that's Jack.
Let's just get more confusing in here.
Al's brother.
And then there's Mark Leiter Jr. There we go.
Yeah, Mark Leiter.
Yeah.
So Mark Leiter is his brother, and his nephew is Mark Leiter Jr.
Leiter, hardly know her.
His son is Jack, not a junior or a third, but he is Al Leiterson. He'll be pitching tonight against Seth Lugo. That game is at 7:05, and it is the first of 25 games where every single game and team they play until the All-Star break is above 500, except for the Pittsburgh Pirates. They have 3 games. So 22 of the 25 games remaining before the All-Star break, they play teams at or above 500. It's a rough stretch. But you know what? If it was an easy stretch, it wouldn't have mattered since, they went 1-5 against the White Sox and the A's. So all along, we've been talking about buying for the Royals. Buying a bat, getting better, adding a bat to the lineup. We'll see what that looks like. And if they're going to do that, I would suggest doing it sooner rather than later. I know that's typically not how the trade deadline works. But you know how it worked a couple of years ago? Was the Rangers needed bullpen help immediately, and they couldn't wait around, and so they traded Cole Reagans for Aroldis Chapman. Not on July 31st. They traded him, what, late June?
Yeah.
When the Royals got Cole Reagans and gave up Chapman? So it has happened before. It's called a winning streak. It has happened before. So if the Royals are interested in adding a bat, I would say sooner rather than later. And if you continue to suck after adding that bat, then maybe you sell in July. Maybe you sell the same bat you just acquired. Maybe you don't get back. Maybe you get 80% of the dollar, 80 cents on the dollar, but you took a chance for 6 weeks and it wasn't working out, and then you get 80 cents back on the dollar that you spent. We'll see. But I think waiting around, if you are truly going to be buyers or you truly think you still have enough this year to compete, now would be the time to do that. So Buster Olney wrote about the 7 front office execs under the most pressure right now. And we'll hear Buster Olney on Thursday morning. Looking forward to that conversation. So here are the 7 Major League Baseball execs. Mike Hazen, Arizona Diamondbacks, GM. And, they went out and paid for Corbin Burns, Eugenio Suarez. They signed Josh Naylor. They were, going for it this year. And it hasn't necessarily worked out.
Well, Burns got injured. That's
exactly
a big part of it.
It sucks. Josh Naylor's a bat that can be traded. Eugenio Suarez is a bat that can be traded. People have talked about Suarez coming to the Royals.
For a month, I've been talking about Eugenio Suarez.
Hey, Eugenio! Royals! Yeah, you! Hey, you! Eugenio Suarez. Philadelphia Phillies, President of Baseball Operations, David Dombrowski. The second guy listed as under the most pressure. Jerry Dipoto, Seattle Mariners, under the most pressure. They bought last year, trying to get bats, Randy Arozarena. It didn't work out because they ended a game out of the wild card from the Royals. Thankfully, that was the case. Chris Young, Texas Rangers, which I think is interesting that he's listed simply because they won a World Series 2 years ago. But he writes here about Chris Young because, putting him on, the other ones make sense. This one is interesting. It says, last July, the Rangers coming off their first championship in 2023, Young waited and waited and waited for a turnaround that never came before the trade deadline. Interesting. Refusing to deal. This year's problems are a little different, but still similar. Jacob deGrom's dominating, but the offense has been shockingly sparse, with Texas ranked 26th in runs scored. There are reasons for hope. Evan Carter, impacted by injuries over the past 18 months, is hitting .387 in June, although he's been experiencing a wrist issue in recent days. Finally, Evan Carter is getting it figured out after I spent the last 2 years with him on my team and then finally let him go. Good for him. And Wyatt Langford is getting better. It's also hard to imagine Marcus Semien hitting .224 all year. Well, you would say that, but he's on my team, so I've had him for like 4 years. So, Young bet on a turnaround last summer. Will he do so again this year? That's why the pressure's on him, is because he waited and waited. No, it's going to turn around. It's going to turn around. Then we're going to be buyers. It's going to turn around. Never happened. Never happened.
Well, it is interesting because you look at their lineup and it looks fairly terrifying.
It should be good.
It's not. It's one of those ones where I don't blame Chris Young, because I get it. When you have Marcus Semien, who has been a perpetual all-star, Adolis Garcia, who looks like he is Hulk, who has traditionally hit 30-some-odd home runs a year.
He's batting like .210 this year, though.
227 OPS in .664. Fits in right with the Royals.
Why don't they trade for him, Be great.
Wyatt Langford's starting to heat back up.
Yeah.
But I mean, like guys like Josh Young, who's struggled, Jake Berger, who's struggled, Jonah Heim, who's struggled, Corey Seager and Jock Peterson, who've struggled. It's just, you look down and it's been perplexing because that should be a top 5?
Should be an amazing offense.
Top 7 offense in baseball.
To the point where they fired their quote-unquote hitting coach, offensive coordinator, whatever, to bring in Boone because the offense was so bad. They figured it was the hitting coach.
It was a passing game coordinator, actually, I think.
That's exactly what it was. I think they called it the offensive coordinator, their offensive manager, something like that. The title that they gave him, because you got to be different. Can't just call him hitting coach. It's like the college coaches that call their special teams special forces. No, we don't have special teams. We got special forces. We wear fatigues and everything. As we practice and everything, because you're not a special teamer. You're on special forces, baby. Okay, cool. Special teams. The next GM, Mike Elias, Baltimore Orioles. That he didn't rank these, right? He's just going through the list of them, and that makes obvious sense because they have collected talent and collected talent and collected talent, and it has not resulted in a playoff win. And it resulted in 2 losses last year in the wild card at home to the Royals. And they are 6.5 games out of the last wild card spot. They have Adley Rutschman, who will have 2 years left of team control after this year. I mean, all of a sudden you're looking at him and it's like, okay, well, hold on. Is that somebody you might want to move to maximize value right now to get pitching back? Because they've got a catcher / first baseman that's in the minors.
Samuel
Basallo.
I was gonna get the Samuel and let you try and get the last name.
Yeah,
that
I
way
appreciate that.
Do
No,
some teamwork.
I'm pretty good at the pronunciations. I kill it, or I kill the names. Says one way or another, Elias has to start building a rotation for next season. Maybe dealing Ryan O'Hearn and or Cedric Mullins and others will help to build that rotation. Next GM, J.J. Piccolo, General Manager, Kansas City Royals. With the recent spate of losses, Kansas City's under 500 and their playoff chances are at 13% per Fangraphs. Piccolo's track record is well established. He's done what he can to win, signing free agents such as Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha, and Carlos Estevez, and more recently promoting top prospect Jack Caglione and bypassing the opportunity to manipulate his service time. But Cole Reagans is out indefinitely because of a strained shoulder, and Lugo has an opt-out on his deal after the season. And at 35 years old, it makes sense for him to take advantage of his leverage. Maybe that's a contract extension with the Royals, or maybe that's testing free agency. If the Royals' recent malaise takes root, Lugo would be coveted in the trade market. And then he mentions Jed Hoyer with the Cubs, because, Kyle Tucker heading for free agency in the fall, and them trading to get Kyle Tucker. Well, the Cubs are not a small market team, but thinking back to Circular, kind of feels a little bit like Paul George. You traded for Paul George, who's going to be a free agent soon, and you're taking a chance that you can re-sign him. They traded a lot of, they traded to get Kyle Tucker, and he's going to be a free agent. So they traded for him so they would have the inside track at re-signing him. We'll see if that's the case.
You got to resign Kyle Tucker. That guy is.
I think they would need to as well. You keep him and Pete Crow Armstrong together in the outfield.
Yes. Kyle Tucker might be one of the most underrated players in baseball,
Agreed.
by the way.
They're number one, by the way, they're number 1 and 2 in All-Star voting. The first All-Star voting update came out yesterday, last night, this morning, whatever. Bobby Witt Jr. is in second at shortstops. He is...
Jacob Wilson, I think, was in first, correct?
Yep. Bobby Witt Jr. is about 40,000 votes behind Jacob Wilson and 200,000 votes ahead of number 3. It's a 2-horse race for shortstop, Jacob Wilson and Bobby Witt Jr. To start at shortstop. It would be pretty disappointing if Jacob Wilson starts at shortstop and Bobby Witt still does not have an all-star game start at shortstop.
True.
Because of Gunnar Henderson and then Jacob Wilson. It will feel a little bit like this is, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and he's been Pro Bowls and APs and MVPs and things like that. But it would feel a little bit like, hey, let's find the next guy who's better than Patrick Mahomes. Hey, let's find the next guy who we can have that's fun, that's not necessarily the easy Bobby Witt choice. Okay, it's Gunnar Henderson. It's Jacob Wilson. This is fun this year. Who's the guy next year? I don't know. We'll find out. Who's this is going to be? This will be fun.
You are right with the Cubs, though. They're interesting because they're not small market. It's Chicago and the big team in Chicago.
Yeah.
Yet,
even though the Pope is trying to make the White Sox,
stop making the fetch isn't going to happen. The White Sox aren't going to happen, Pope. Come on.
It might. I don't know. I mean, they've got God on their side now.
But Rizzo, Chris
That
Bryant.
man's faith has been tested.
That guy loves him some Juan Pierre, guaranteed. Guaranteed. That guy, Juan Uribe, Juan Pierre, the Juans, Aaron Rowand.
Is that right?
Has to. Mark Burley.
What about
Bobby Jenks?
What about Joe Creedy?
Joe Creedy, 100%. What do you think his thoughts were on AJ Przinsky?
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine being the Pope and liking AJ Przinsky. That
World
feels like
champion.
it has to be a oil and water situation.
The I don't know anything about what happens with the conclave or anything like that, but I would wonder if the Pope just walks in wearing a White Sox hat and they're like, this guy is as faithful as it gets. He's good to go. This guy's still a White Sox fan. All right, this guy is going to be a believer as much as anybody has been a believer. He's our guy. First American Pope. What did it take? He's a White Sox fan. That's all it took.
First question for the Pope. What did you take away when Chris Sale cut up all those jerseys?
A piece of it. I took away a piece of it.
Nice.
That's what I took. But the Cubs, what are they going to do? It would be difficult for them if they don't capitalize this year, because it feels there's a little bit of a maybe you're going more all in this year, so you might be more willing to trade some prospects. And by the way, if we're talking about the Royals and if they're sellers, one of the things the Chicago Cubs could use is starting pitching. Steele's out for the season, and the Astros could use starting pitching too. By the way, Toronto needs starting pitching. Dodgers need starting pitching. Astros, if they continue to play well, they've lost Blanco and Wisniewski for the season.
Yeah.
So that's 2 of their starting 5 that they started the season. They've got a couple of frontline guys that are pretty damn good too, in Valdez and Brown. So they're fine from that standpoint to help you
But
with
depth pieces.
Right. Lugo might be nice in a Astros rotation or whatever if the Royals get to that point, or the Dodgers, things like that. But the Cubs sort of feel like if you're going to do what you did for Kyle Tucker, then probably take advantage of this year and maybe trade a little bit more to go a little bit more all in, because they are a team that, come on, they're in Chicago. I don't want to hear them crying poor and destitute. You're over here crying poor and destitute. I don't want to hear that from the Houston Astros. They're a small market team. You're in Houston. Shut up. Can they afford Kyle Tucker? Because that contract's going to start with a 5.
Who, Houston?
No,
Who
Chicago.
already had,
Yeah. Can Houston afford Kyle Tucker that they traded because they weren't going to sign him?
because they couldn't afford him?
Yeah.
Or Bregman because they couldn't afford him?
But how do you trade for him if you're the Cubs and not feel like you have the money to afford him when he becomes a free agent?
Well, the
And if that's
Yankees-
the case, why would you slow play it in a season where you're playing the way that you are? Pete Crow Armstrong is becoming Pete Crow All-Star and is one of the more fun players to watch. Like, they have a fun outfield.
Best defensive center fielder I've seen in
Well, Denzel Clark is giving you a run for the money, too, with Pete Crow Armstrong.
consistency, though, for the full year.
Yeah.
Oh, man. If you've not seen Pete Crow Armstrong, It is insane. It is even more impressive, I think, than prime Kevin Kiermaier in center field. I think, like, if
what about Jim Edmonds and that amazing catch in center field off of David Howard's bat?
Yeah, but I love Edmonds, and that's one of my favorite catches of all time.
Mm-hmm.
PCA is just going to camp underneath that thing, or at least just catch it without having to dive, because he is the fastest player in base.
Awesome.
Him and Bobby Witt Jr. are both 100%.
It makes you wonder. It does make you wonder. By the way, I don't want him to move, but it does make you wonder what Bobby Witt would look like in center field.
Yes, 100%. Because I'm like,
what
do you look like
that,
PCA?
God, earlier this year, I can't remember what play that Crow Armstrong made, and I was like, I wonder what because Bobby's amazing at shortstop.
Yes.
Because if Bobby was
clone him,
right? If Bobby was in center, it'd be like, man, if he could play shortstop with that range, like running out to the Bermuda Triangle and short left field, getting out that'd be amazing to watch him play shortstop. So I don't want him to move, but you do wonder like what he would be as a center fielder and how great defensively in the plays he would make in center. The plays that he's making at freaking shortstop as well. But yeah, PCA feels like the Bobby Witt defensive version of what center field would be.
It's if you gave Alex Gordon Bobby Witt Jr.'s speed and said, that's basically what it is. That's basically what PCA is. It's insane.
Yeah. But I thought it was interesting that I didn't think J.J. Picollo would be one of the 7 GMs that were listed here. I thought it'd be more GMs that have spent money, more like the Mariners. They traded last year to get a bat, and it still didn't work out. They didn't go and sign Josh Naylor in the offseason, and it sort of annoyed a lot of people. They've been hesitant to this point to make the moves offensively. Do they go and trade for Ryan O'Hearn? Or do they go and trade for Josh Naylor? And say, okay, well, should have just freaking signed him. But, we're not going to make 2 mistakes. We're not going to – it's a sunk cost already in terms of what we – didn't spend monetarily. Hey, and maybe the Diamondbacks will eat some of the money, and we'll give up a little bit more so to be cheaper, whatever. But those are the type of names I thought would show up on this list. It is surprising, and I'm glad that it's not just here's your general, boring. There's more thought process put into this because you've got the Phillies and you've got the Diamondbacks and you've got teams that have played in World Series in the last few years. And you got the Rangers that won a World Series 2 years ago. And you've got, the Orioles makes a lot of sense. Mike Elias, I think probably, if you're ranking them, I think it might be number 1.
Yeah.
Because you did the whole rebuild, you did the process, and it worked from getting the draft picks right, it felt like. But what they did was make the ultimate mistake of overvaluing their prospects and not selling at peak. Kobe Mayo, who we've talked about a lot, has now had extended time in the big leagues playing, and he's still batting like 130.
Yep.
Not hitting the ball hard, not hitting extra base hits. Imagine if you traded him before the 2024 season. What you could have got for Kobe Mayo. That's going to be the next Austin Riley. Well, now he's had a full season in 2024 when he came up and didn't perform. And then in 2025 when he came up earlier, didn't perform, sent back down, now brought back up and not performing. You're starting to get more and more of a book on who Kobe Mayo is. And maybe he ain't Austin Riley. Maybe he's a 4A player. And if he's a 4A player, you massively missed the boat. The Royals missed the boat on MJ Melendez. He hit, 30-something home runs as a catcher in the minor leagues in AA. That was the time to trade him. Hindsight's 20/20, right? Although, give credit where credit is due. I think Soren was talking about it at the time and saying, if you're going to keep him, he better stick at catcher. But if he's going to be an outfielder, those numbers are going to drop and the value is going to be less for an outfielder. He's not going to be hitting 30 home runs a season at the big leagues. So if you're going to move him, you need to move him now. If not, he's going to be a catcher. And they said, he's a good defensive catcher. He's going to stick there. And then they saw him in the big leagues and they said, he can't even catch the ball. There's so many pass balls that are happening. They're not wild pitches. He's just not catching it. We got to move him to right field. Okay, well, now the value gets worse. Now you see him at the big leagues, and he's struggling to hit. Now the value is 0 because now he's out in AAA. You missed the boat on what the prime time to trade MJ Melendez was as a catcher. I say this as somebody that I don't want it to happen because he's a local kid, and, knowing a little bit more about him than, just generally other local kids. But if they're going to buy, and the Royals are going to buy a controllable bat for a number of years to get somebody that can help the big league club for the next 2 or 3 years, now might be the time to move Carter Jensen because he is absolutely raking over the last month or so. I mean, he's batting like 350. He's hitting home runs. He's at like a 180 weighted runs created plus. I mean, Jack got the call up to AAA, and he was still struggling, and then just turned it around, and he has been absolutely one of the best hitters in AA. And he's a catcher still. And people say he can stick at catcher. And he's got light tower power, right? Just mashes and a great eye. Not somebody with that approach, willing to take a walk. Not somebody that I'm wanting them to trade. But if we're talking about maximizing value at a position of a premium position, to have value and power like that and the hit tool like that, now may be the time to maximize that. You better get it right, especially if it turns out to be really good.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to happen, obviously. I'd like for them to get great players and then bring Carter up. And maybe Carter makes the transition from Salvi to Carter Jensen, and maybe late next year. Keep smashing AA. Let's see if he gets that promotion to AAA this year. And if he gets the promotion to AAA this year, then 2026 is on the table.
Yeah.
For him making his debut if he's at AAA this year. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. We'll talk some more baseball coming up with Les Norman breaking the norm at noon. We'll talk about Dave Martinez's comments and how much truth there is to what he said about, this is on the players, man. They got to go out there and perform. Coaches aren't the ones winning and losing games, especially when we dismiss the impact of a manager over the course of the season. So we'll talk with Les Norman about that, how it's received in the clubhouse. We'll talk about this team, what the next couple of weeks may look like. And also want to get Les Norman's thoughts on the College World Series. Gage Wood. Missing bat, so they weren't putting good wood on his fastball. Like he said, I felt like something was going because I kept pitching out of the windup. Adam Teicher next. All right, we continue right here on 43810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you in this 11 o'clock hour. We'll talk with Les Norman, some baseball coming up at noon. Right now, let's talk some Chiefs football. Adam Teicher, mandatory minicamp going on today, tomorrow, and on into Thursday. Adam, welcome into the show. How are you, sir?
Good, Jason. How are you doing today?
I am doing just fine. Looking forward to hearing from the Chiefs coming up in a couple of hours after their first day of mandatory minicamp. Let's look back at OTAs, even though this is sort of the last 3 days of Phase 3. You know, everybody's got to be there or they get fined, but sort of the same protocol that's there for mandatory minicamp as OTAs. But looking back at these last 3 weeks, do you have a bigger takeaway from what you've seen from practices so far in this offseason, some of your final practices that you'll be attending?
Yeah. Well, again, it's a lot like last season, as we talked about. They've really emphasized getting the ball down the field. I mean, Holmes has been trying to do that any chance he gets, and it's been less about necessarily success or lack of success, and more about the process, more about emphasizing it and getting ready for when the success or lack of success really matters, if that makes any sense. So they're trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and last year, I mean, that they went 15-2 without getting any big plays or very few big plays in their passing game was really an amazing thing, because their margin for error was almost zero. So they're trying to fix that now and giving themselves a little bit more of a margin for error. We'll see how successful they are, but to me, that again was one of their bigger takeaways. The biggest takeaways from the offseason, at least so far, is just trying to revive that downfield passing game.
One of the things that I found to be, I guess impressive from hearing from Patrick Mahomes and those that are around him each and every year is that element of every year is going to be different. You start from scratch, you start over. And yes, last year they were going for the three-peat, a little bit different than, maybe quote-unquote revenge tour, or whatever we want to call it this year. Is that there's that consistency of the approach of winning the Super Bowl this year, no matter what happened the year before. But there's been some conversation and hearing those at the press conference about maybe the little added motivation, right? The little bit of a chip on the shoulder because of what happened last year. Do you sense that that's what's going on with this team, that there is that little bit of an extra edge with them because they lost the Super Bowl and wanting to get back on top? And we know that there may not be a more competitive person than Patrick Mahomes. In fact, maybe a competitive prick, as Eric Bieniemy called him. Do you sense that added motivation, that extra element of push from this team coming off what was, quite frankly, an embarrassing loss?
Yeah, I think so. When you've been to the mountaintop, so to speak, you got to find different ways to motivate yourself. And it's easy this time of year, I think, to go through the motions when that's your reality, that if you're the champion or in last year's case, the two-time defending champion. I think there are different ways you have to go about it. And last year they were trying to be the first team to three-peat in the Super Bowl era and motivated themselves that way. I think that those kinds of things can get you through an off season, can help you get that extra workout in or spend that extra time in the weight room that maybe you wouldn't otherwise. So yeah, I think that's maybe more of an off season thing. I think once they start for real up at camp in a few weeks, I don't know how much of a thing that's going to be, but I do think it has been for them during the off season.
Do you think that sometimes, I always wonder when it comes to a team, consistency and continuity is a big thing in the NFL, and having the coaching staff and the players certainly can help with, being able to layer on game plans and plays and schemes and things like that. But I also think there's an element of whether it's fresh blood or getting, other guys in there that have never won and have that extra motivation and that drive that's there. I do wonder, getting to the mountaintop, as you talk about, certainly is an accomplishment, and staying there is incredibly difficult. And we've heard from different players that said, man, after I won my first one,
nothing more than I wanted to do than to win the next one. And after I won that one, then I wanted to win the next one. And Tom Brady talked about that the next one was more important than the one before that. But in a way, is it for this particular season in a vacuum, not the overall arching history of the Chiefs or anything? Is there that added sort of maybe a positive spin on this, if we want to find a silver lining, that just being at the mountaintop constantly and winning, you can sort of get maybe comfortable, even though you're going for history. And this was kind of a knockdown and a reality check of that, yeah, you're not just going to keep winning Super Bowls every single year, that it is difficult to get there and win, and it's fleeting, and you never know if you're going to get another one. And so maybe that, not necessarily new blood being infused into the team with different players, but new blood being infused in that you've got knocked down, you got embarrassed, and maybe you're not viewed as the big dogs on the block anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at it. I mean, let's just say they had found a way to beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Then they're looking to become the first team to four-peat, right? I mean, it's always about finding something, I think, and in whatever the circumstance might be. And, they had to try to do that. And just in talking to some of the players during the offseason, I think there is that, what you suggest. And, maybe that's a different thing for them. They haven't had to deal with that very often over the last few years, but they certainly are this year. And, had to do it after the Tampa Bay Super Bowl a few years ago, and so it's just about finding whatever the circumstances in that given year and using that as motivation.
Visiting with Adam Teicher from ESPN. The last time the Chiefs were in a position like this, we've talked about it after the Eagles Super Bowl and a couple of times this offseason. But the last time they were in this position was coming off the 2021 season and the loss to the Bengals in the AFC Championship game, trading of Tyreek Hill, a lot of doubters that are there, the Keenan Allen tweet about somebody's about to get exposed. I think we all inferred that he was talking about Patrick Mahomes. He's never weighed in on what he meant by that. I don't know. It could have been, something randomly at the car wash or something. I have no idea what it was about. But we all sort of assumed with the timing that it wasn't just coincidental. But there was an element of them wanting to go out and prove something, and they go out and they're the number one team on offense, number one in points, number one in yards, the advanced metrics and things like that. They were just so efficient, so good. They had explosive plays. They were doing some of those things that have been missing the last couple of years. And then last year you mentioned, not having those big plays, still going 15-1 when they, wanted to be out there, 15th in points and 16 in yards. If you're guessing or looking ahead or maybe looking at recent history, is this offense this year going to be closer to what 2022 was or what last year was in terms of the efficiency, the effectiveness, the points they're putting on the board, the yards they're picking up, coming off the loss to the Eagles?
Well, that's the big question. I mean, I think that the answer to that question will determine what the success of the team is. I think last year, boy, they just lived on an edge. We talked about them having almost no margin for error last year, and I just don't see them having that, winning 15 games with that kind of offense again. I think they have to find a way to get back to that 2022 level, or at least something close to it. It's hard for me to predict they're going back to that right now. I mean, I think a lot of the pieces are in place, and if everything falls their way, if Josh Simmons works out the way they hoped, and Rashid Rice can stay healthy, and Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, then I think it can be something like what they had in 2022. But not all these things I don't think are going to work out. Is Rice going to get suspended? Is he going to stay healthy? Hollywood Brown hasn't been able to stay healthy in quite some time for a full season. So, is Simmons going to work out the way they hoped? I mean, some of these things might work out, or all of them going to work out for him. So, I guess I'm in a wait-and-see mode on that. If I had to predict, I think it's going to be more difficult for him. Maybe not quite like last year, but more difficult for him than it was in 2022.
Visiting with Adam Teicher from ESPN. Xavier Worthy will be a big part of that in taking those downfield shots and wanting to press the issue, and what you wrote about last week and what that challenge to Patrick Mahomes was from Andy Reid. I want to talk about Xavier Worthy specifically. 2 weeks ago, we talked about maybe getting that extra time last year with Rashee Rice's injury, that maybe that set him up for a better sophomore campaign. This is, taking one little thing from OTAs and maybe looking at a bigger picture. So, it's all we have to go off of. But I am curious from your standpoint, from last year to this year, there was the play at last Thursday's OTAs down the sideline from Patrick Mahomes to Xavier Worthy, in which he fought to stay on the red line and not sort of drift out of bounds. Are we looking at me? I don't want to say we because I might be the only one in this boat here. But am I looking at that and getting taking too much from that compared to last year when he did drift and couldn't get both feet down? And this go around, it was staying on the red line and fighting that he didn't just sort of drift to the sideline and they complete a pass and it was like, okay, yeah, that's maybe what it's supposed to look like. Or is this just practice and in a game? We don't know. But, what do you make of that one play? And is there too much to be made of that one play in OTAs where he did stay on the red line as opposed to what we saw too often last year?
No, I think that does mean something. If he's going to be towing the line during an otherwise meaningless June practice, if he's going to be doing that, the easy thing to assume is that he's going to be doing that when it really counts in September and October and November. So, no, I do think that is a significant thing. Probably wouldn't have seen that from Worthy last year when he was a rookie. So, no, I do think that's a significant thing. And those are the kinds of things they should be working on and should be improving on this time of year. So, hey, we'll see when it gets for real. But I do think there is some meaning in that.
There was a play on Thursday, and we'll see what some of the plays come from OTA or a mini camp today, tomorrow, and not necessarily Thursday with more conditioning, but today and tomorrow. But maybe the highlight last Thursday in the portion that the media was there was the shot down the field to Brashard Smith, that it was a wheel route. He's on Christian Fulton, a guy who's experienced, been in the league a long time, and nothing against Christian Fulton, but maybe that was an underestimating Brashard Smith's speed or just his inability to have the speed to keep up with him. But also Mahomes dropping it in the bucket, a little bit of an adjustment from Brashard Smith, and a play that not many running backs, so certainly rookie running backs, are going to make. So you see the receiver turn running back. What do you make of that play, Mahomes hitting Brashard Smith and him going up against, not Noel Williams or a fifth or sixth, cornerback, a guy that's got experience in the league and is probably going to be a starter this year for the Chiefs?
Yeah, no, I think that was the other play that stood out to me from practice last week was the play you mentioned. I think you talked a minute ago about how Worthy is a big part of what they want to do downfield, and no doubt he is, but it can't just be him. Mm-hmm. And I think Brashard Smith is a guy who maybe can be that kind of guy, and we saw a little bit of the evidence of it in that play. That's a guy that, again, you don't want to make too much from what you see on the practice field in June because they're in shorts and T-shirts, but it can give you a pretty good glimpse into what the Chiefs have planned here. And I think Brashard Smith is going to be a big part of that downfield passing game, lining up wherever that might be, out of the backfield in the slot, split wide. I think there's some real plans for him to do those kinds of things. And hey, sometimes the grand plans that the Chiefs have or other teams have in June don't work out in September. Mm-hmm. But sometimes they do, and I keep going back to this. I remember when Travis Kelce was a rookie during OTAs, boy, you could tell the plans the Chiefs had for him. And it didn't work out for him as a rookie because he had that knee situation and didn't play. But eventually it did come to fruition, and so we'll see where it is with Brashard Smith. But there's a lot of plans for him, and I want to see how it works out, in camp and when the season starts. How much of this they can get to.
visiting with Adam Teicher from ESPN. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue talking with Adam. Mandatory minicamp starting today. We'll talk about waistlines, knees, surgeries, guards. We'll get into a little bit of that coming up on the other side of the break. More Zone right after this. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, hanging out with Adam Teicher from ESPN. Mandatory minicamp going on today. Adam, let's talk about some of the questions, or at least one of the questions and observations that people are having looking at the weight of Travis Kelce. You know, seeing different photos from him in New York and him at the Florida Panthers game, and hearing Jeremy Fowler, your colleague at ESPN, and his report over the weekend of Travis Kelce telling people that he's 25 pounds lighter. What do you make of that just overall? Just, you know, Kelce told Pat McAfee, I'm going to try to get into the best shape I've been in. And, you know, there's a lot of motivation from last year and the sour taste in my mouth. What do you make of what seems to be a renewed figure for Travis Kelce going into, hey, what could be his final year in the league?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, let's see what he looks like on the practice field. None of the open OTAs, he hasn't been in any of them so far, so I've not seen him on the practice field. But, yeah, hey, that's great, and you know, that certainly it seems like he's been really motivated to make this the best year it can be. And that's, you know, there's no way to paint that for the Chiefs other than good news. But I'll keep going back to this. I think it's bad news for the Chiefs if Travis Kelce is their leading receiver. When the season's over, Travis Kelce's their leading receiver again. I think they're not going to. That's not going to be a successful offensive season for them. They need to start shifting the emphasis of this passing game away from him and on to guys like Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown and you know, and even some of the Worthy certainly, and even some of the secondary guys like Noah Gray and some of the running backs. You know, I feel like if this is going to be another 90-catch season from Travis Kelce, I'm not sure that's where the Chiefs want to go with their offense anymore. So, you know, we'll see where this goes. And some of the reason he caught 97 balls last year certainly was that yeah, a lot of the other guys were hurt.
Yeah.
And they really had no choice. So I feel like they really need to shift that emphasis away from him. So while it's great that he might be in shape and you know, plans to have a big season, I don't know that necessarily. I mean, he certainly needs to be part of the solution here, but he can't be the number one guy anymore.
Can Mahomes help himself and not look at Travis Kelce in certain situations and sort of feel like there's that trust? And even though it's like, hey, this guy might be open, that guy might be open, but it's 87 who I see 87 and I'm throwing the ball.
Yeah, you know, I think he will, but, you know, we saw a little bit of that last year when, you know, the first 3 games of the season.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
Rashee Rice was leading the league in catches after 3 weeks. So I think he can. I think that's where that, you know, certainly Kelce didn't produce much over those first 3 games. I don't think those kinds of numbers are going to be what he has over a whole season. But I do think that he, you know, it's the plan is not to heap this big burden on him. So not to say he won't have some big games or won't have a nice season. I just don't see it like it's been for him.
Let me ask you this. We brought this up yesterday, and it's, you know, a theory and you know, picking your brain as to him losing weight and him saying, you know, 25 pounds lighter. Is that, you know, and we're expected to hear from Travis Kelce this week. We'll see what happens. Or, you know, we'll just play clips from New Heights, is what we often call Travis Kelce availability, New Heights podcast. Is the losing 25 pounds, if in fact that's what happened, is that an admission that he was out of shape last year and was putting on weight and sort of thought that he could just go out and play? Or, benefit of the doubt, is that him saying, you know what? My body's getting old and I can't play at my usual weight. So if I want to be a guy that is a little faster and has, you know, the yards after catch, I'm going to have to lose some weight. What theory would you go with? That he was out of shape last year, or he realizes he can't play at that same weight that he's played in his career?
No, I think there's some truth in both of that. You know, he wasn't where he wanted to be last year, and that if he's going to have some kind of career renaissance, if you will, then you know, he's going to have to drop a little bit of weight. You know, I'm wondering whether 25 pounds if that's indeed where he is a that's an ideal thing for him. Dropping that much weight, but we'll see. I'm kind of eager to see him. What he looks like out there and how that's working out for him. But yeah, definitely, I think it's a little of both.
You won't be covering him this year, and we only have a couple of conversations left with you. So I may ask you again in a couple of weeks, or our last conversation. But I'll ask you right now, since we're talking about it, if you are making a prediction, and not necessarily in the prediction game, but is this Travis Kelce's last year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's going to be 37 next a year from October, so he's going to be 36 this October. I mean, boy, he's really pushing it there, and given his contract situation, I mean, are the Chiefs going to want to sink a whole bunch of money into him? Maybe, but I don't know. I think it is. My sense is it would be, but hey, we'll see what this year looks like. Certainly, he would have some plans. The Chiefs probably have some plans with that, but that can change. If he has a big year and is rejuvenated, I could see him playing another year. But right now, I'd say no, he won't be. He won't be playing again.
Adam Teich is our guest from ESPN. Let's talk about a couple of other quick points, and then we'll get you out of here. Josh Simmons competing or participating in the team portion. Jalen Moore still on the side with the leg wrapped or whatever. What do you make of that situation with Jalen Moore not participating? They typically take a pretty cautious approach when it comes to these things. But also, I wonder if there's an element of, hey, you know what? It's okay because we want to get as many reps for Josh Simmons as we can, as long as he can do it, to have him be out there, because maybe there's an element of they know what to expect from Jalen Moore, but they've seen him on tape in the NFL and what he can do, that maybe the more reps for Josh Simmons is actually a good thing.
Yeah, no, I think it is a good thing, and the Chiefs necessarily haven't framed it this way publicly, but I think they'd like to, that there's some kind of competition going on there, but it's really not. They want Josh Simmons to win that job. I mean, it's hard to overestimate how highly the Chiefs thought of Josh Simmons. I mean, they thought that he was not only one of the better offensive tackle prospects in this year's draft, they thought he was one of the better offensive tackle prospects in several years in the draft. So that's how they view him, and he's going to win that job if he's healthy. I don't think there's any, unless he just goes out there and busts. I mean, if he just goes out there and shows he is absolutely not ready to play, then I could see Jalen Moore being the starter. But if Simmons is healthy and is somewhat competent, I think he will be their starter on opening day. So, that's been a big development in this camp as well. One of the takeaways is that Josh Simmons looks, at least at this point, like he's going to be ready to go when the season starts.
Did you hear anything that stood out from Kingsley talking to the media since the move to, quote-unquote, the move to guard, and what he had to say last, I guess that was Thursday?
Yeah, I think it was kind of interesting that Zach Allen of the Broncos told him what a great game he had. I kind of like that. I mean, so I do think there were, that was kind of interesting, and he seems to be more comfortable there maybe than he was at tackle. So, we'll see. I was going through my notes the other day from last season regarding him, and I remember Andy Reid saying, "Oh no, we're not thinking of any other position from him. He's a tackle. He's a tackle. He's a tackle." And now there seems to be a little bit of this revisionist history around him, like, well, we drafted him and we thought there was some positional versatility there. Well, I don't know. I mean, hey, stranger things have happened than him sort of failing at one position, getting moved to another one, and becoming a productive player. And I'm not saying it's not going to happen for him, because he's still a young guy, only 22 years old, didn't play a lot in college. So, there's certainly the possibility that he can develop into a pretty good player, but I think there's a lot of wishful thinking going on right now to think he's going to have a big year at guard. Again, not saying it's not going to happen. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but we're a long way from that point.
Is there a lesson in that from last year and proceeding with caution if when we hear things about Josh Simmons? Because I feel like things we saw in training camp and some struggles from Kingsley in one-on-one drills in training camp, and it was like, he's learning, or even a couple of times when he got beat pretty good by Malik Herring, and it was like, well, you know what, maybe Malik Herring has improved because the Chiefs really like Kingsley and what he can do, and the more reps he gets, the more reps he gets. Is there a lesson in that, and sort of a cautionary tale with Josh Simmons if we're seeing some of the same things, but hearing the Chiefs continue to pump up Josh Simmons, that we can look back and go, we saw the same thing with Kingsley, and it didn't necessarily work out. We saw those same things in training camp manifest in the regular season. That I do think there was an element of, certainly myself, of wanting to also see Kingsley be a good left tackle, so it was easy to go, oh, well, the Chiefs believe in him, and so, yeah, he's going to be, he'll develop into that.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I think you have to treat all these situations differently. Certainly different guys develop at different rates, and so you can't say, well, Suamataia failed, so we need to handle Simmons with kid gloves here because we don't know whether he's going to fail too. There's certainly different guys and develop differently. Simmons played a little more in college. He's got more experience. You think he's going to be farther along in that respect than where Suamataia was at this time last year. And the other thing is, I just don't think there's anything wrong with having big expectations for Josh Simmons. I mean, the way they felt about him, again, I can't overestimate what they felt about him and his ability to be a top-flight NFL left tackle. So, I think you need to give him every chance to fail. But maybe you want to pull the plug maybe a little earlier than they did with Suamataia last year. Although I got to tell you, from watching Suamataia during camp last year, I don't think there were a whole lot of red flags. I don't think there were a whole lot of things where you would have said, boy, trouble is coming here. Certainly he was not a finished product, but you don't expect that from a guy who, was 21 years old at the time and hadn't played a lot from college. You expected that learning curve basically to be heading straight up for him, and thought that there was every reason that things were going to get better from the start of camp to the end of camp and the start of the regular season to, say, week 8 or whatever. But it just didn't happen for him. I'd caution you away from saying, well, it didn't happen for Suamataia, so it probably won't happen for Josh Simmons either.
Adam Teicher from ESPN. Last one, we'll let you get into practice. How real is the punting competition with Eddie Chaplitsky there in camp? They probably need to figure something out this week because heading to training camp. But how real do you think that competition is with Dave Toub trying to figure out his punter?
Yeah, you never like to take two punters or two kickers to training camp, but I think they're going to do it this year. Hey, for all of his potential, Matt Araiza has some things he needs to improve on. I mean, he just could not kill the ball inside the 20 or had real difficulty doing that last year. Tommy Townsend got very good at that, and so Dustin Colquitt was certainly good at that during his career. That's a weapon for them, and rather giving the opposing team the ball at the 20 every time they punt near the end zone, it's okay to give them the ball at the 5-yard line or whatever. So that's an area the Chiefs are really serious about improving in, is that part of the punting game. And if Matt Araiza isn't better at that, I think that there's a chance that he could lose his job. We'll see as it goes along. But what little I've seen from the rookie, he's got the consistency you're looking for. I mean, he doesn't get 2 out of 3 punts that are it seems to be on a consistent basis that he has that. That's kind of what you look for from rookies in terms of punting. At least I do. You know, how often do they kick an NFL quality kick? Is it 100% of the time? Is it 75% of the time? You know, they've had some. The Chiefs have had some good young punters in here over the years. Guys like Jack Fox, who went on to this great career with the Lions, and Ryan Ricow, who had a nice season for the Bengals last year. And you know, the problem with those guys was not their ability; it was their consistency. You know, Jack Fox would hit some great punts when he was here, and then he would shank a few too. So, but I haven't seen that with the rookie here now. So, I do think this is real and not necessarily, you know, something they're just going to give it to Ariza and say, well, we're crossing our fingers and hope you improve.
Would Dave Tobe rather have the big leg that can boom a 70-yarder from time to time, or the guy with the nice touch that can put it down inside the 10-yard line more times than not?
Yes, he'd like to have both of those. You know, seriously, why can't you have both? You know, I think he would rather have the guy who's got the touch. I mean, certainly, you know, there's you know, time and place for a guy who can kick it 70, 80 yards like Ariza is capable of. But you can't survive that way in the NFL. You need to be you know, more consistent about it, and you need to develop that all-around game. And it's telling that they brought in some significant competition for him because they want to see that area improve with him.
I thought it was mean that Dustin Colquitt put that punt inside the 5-yard line. Like, that was come on, Dustin. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, this is how you do it, Matt Ariza. They do it this way.
Ariza's like, it's not that easy, Dustin. Come on, man. It's not that easy, dude. Adam Teicher from ESPN. Adam, you're the man. Appreciate it as always, brother. We will catch up next week.
All right, good stuff, Jason. We'll talk to you then.
All right, there's Adam Teicher from ESPN Chiefs Insider, heading to now go into the media availability portion of mandatory minicamp to see the practice today. Tomorrow, they've got the conditioning on Thursday, but we'll hear from the Kansas City Chiefs coming up in the 1 o'clock hour today and tomorrow, and then at 11:15, 11:30 coming up on Thursday. But yeah, I do think the punting competition is real, and in fact, Pete Sweeney at Arrowhead Pride talked about it, wrote about it, and on with the New Day yesterday, and said that's the second biggest competition that he sees with this roster. You know, left tackle with Moore and Josh Simmons, and punter with Ariza and Chaplitsky, who's going to be the punter, because I absolutely believe that Dave Tobe would rather have the guy that can put it inside the 10-yard line rather than, hey, we need a 70-yard punt here. Because, quite frankly, how often do you need the 70-yard punt with what you would hope the Chiefs' offense would be? And how often would you like to have that thing placed inside the 10? And it seemed like too often Ariza was trying to be too fine, getting it inside the 5, and it would bounce into the end zone, as opposed to, you know, you got a lot of room. Anything inside the 20 is better than bouncing it in the end zone. So better safe than sorry, I would say, with that. I mean, getting it at the 10 is fine. It's much better than them getting it at the 20. But trying to get it at the 5 at the risk of giving it to the ball at the 20 is inside. Punters are too good today. You hear Dave Tobe talk about, we will fair catch the ball inside the 10-yard line, inside the 5-yard line. Remember the old adage, you put your heels on the 10 and you don't back up. Not the case anymore. That is fine with the guys fair catching it, because, as he said, punters are so good that, you know, they're downing the ball inside the 5-yard line. And so I'd have to imagine that's quite an annoyance for him that his punter is not doing what he finds to be more of a regular, routine situation of other punters around the league doing that. And if Chaplitsky is the guy that's going to do that, I think he's going to be the punter. As long as he can hold for Harrison Butker, the way that Ariza seemed like it was just fine in a seamless transition from Tommy Townsend to Ariza as a holder. If Chaplitsky can do that, and he offers 80%, 85% of the deep, powerful leg that Ariza gives you, but 150% of the touch, well, yeah, then you're going to go with him. So I think Ariza has real competition on his hands And we'll see what happens this week and on into training camp. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling more zone right after this.
Thank you to Adam Teicher from ESPN there at practice, OTA's minicamp. Videos now coming out as the media there in attendance. We have video confirmation of both Travis Kelce there working out and also Trace Smith. So Trace Smith there at OTAs today. It is what I expected to have happen, but it was still going to be a question of whether or not he was going to show up to the mandatory minicamp. I said OTAs, but mandatory minicamp. The final 3 practices of the phase 3 before they take the long break, and then you go into training camp. But it's a month away. July 15th, the deadline when they have to have that contract figured out for the franchise tag. Either you sign a long-term deal, or after the deadline, you can't do anything. You've got to play on the franchise tag for the year. So hopefully they get something done. I don't know how much this means. Like, I think it's easy, Sterling, to look at it and go, oh, Trey Smith is there, therefore the contract's going great. Or Trey Smith knows for a fact that he's going to be playing this year on this team, so being a leader, being around it, means something to be there at the mandatory minicamp. It also could mean that the contract negotiations are going fine. I just don't draw that conclusion from him being there that, okay, now we're close because of this. I think in July, then we'll start sort of the countdown of when's this thing going to get done.
I think he was going to be there either way, but it is, again, nice to know that at least it's not contentious between the sides, so you at least have that. Because I think if you're Trey Smith, you're fine either way. If you're the Chiefs, I think to an extent you're okay either way. I've talked about it. I mean, Trey Smith's going to get, what, $23 million this year. He's going, yeah, I'm not holding out. I'm going to go ahead and make that this year, and whatever happens, happens, because that's $23 million. I'm content taking that. And if you're the Chiefs, you go, we'd like to get an extension done. That's a lot of money. Obviously, the franchise tag you can't do anything with because that's $23 mil right then and there. But also it gives you a chance to say, all right, let's see what Norzad looks like. Let's see what Kingsley Suamataia looks like. Let's look what does C.J. Hansen look like? Because that gives you a chance of maybe, you know what, maybe we just want the 1 year of Trey Smith and we can fill it with a lot cheaper contract if we want to spend that money on Karl Loftus and McDuffie. So I think from both sides, you can look at it as a positive. You can look at it as a negative. You know me, I'm typically more of the optimistic side of things. Some will look a little more glass half full, but yeah, I'm glad to see him there. I think he's playing this year no matter what. That's my opinion here. But I think both parties are content if an extension gets done or if it's the franchise tag.
Yeah, I think the point you made is a good one that regardless, like at a minimum, him being there shows that it's not some contentious relationship that has been severed or there's an issue between the two and they're not talking. And Trey Smith is trying to make a point to the Chiefs. It's not that. He's there. We'll see if something actually gets done. But the Chiefs have still have, like, what, $10 million, I guess, in cap space, or maybe a little less than that. So they've already budgeted for his $23 million. Les Norman next.
You really got me now.
Do I have you so that you can't sleep at night?
I can't sleep at night because I was thinking about this segment, Les.
Well,
Come on.
I'm honored. Honored.
You really got me.
I'm still a little. Maybe it's because your stature is just so large.
Wow.
Doubtful.
Wow.
5'10". I'm still not seeing 5'10".
5'10" and a quarter.
5'8.5".
Are you calling Dr. Horton a liar?
I'm saying you were wearing stilts. I'm saying
I'm wearing sandals.
They
These are
didn't take your shoes
rainbows,
off.
baby.
They didn't take your shoes off.
I don't trust
Rainbows.
I don't trust any doctor that hears a who.
That's a good call.
Just don't trust them.
That's a good call.
Although
What's your
if
dentist's
he-
name?
What
Quintus?
if he was just listening to the Who? You know, because Horton could hear. You can't hear Jimmy. You're just listening to Jimmy. You
Baba
can't hear
O'Reilly.
Jimmy.
And it would
Yeah.
depend on his state listening to the Who. 'Cause, back then there was a little bit of psychedelicness.
That's why he thought he was 5'10".
I think most of
Whoa,
those
dude,
albums.
you look so tall.
He's 5'8", but I don't believe this. He's 5'10".
5'10" and a quarter.
5'10". You
Well, how tall are you, Les?
I'm about 6 even, but
We can go back to back.
Osteoporosis is setting in, so
Oh,
I think I'm
no.
about 5'11"
Right,
and 3/4.
We can go back to back.
That's the problem. That's what it is. Yeah.
We can go front to
Are
front if
you
you
wearing?
want,
Are you
Les.
wearing? No. Are you wearing lifts on your flip flops?
These are flat as can be. These are pancakes.
Yeah, it's like the plains. You know what I mean? It's
Come
like a
on.
trip to Colorado through Kansas. That's how flat those.
I always love our
Flip-flops
extended
are.
reunitedness. I love it.
Yes.
You did call me I was built, though, which felt pretty good from Les.
That's a relative term. I mean, it just depends on what somebody's talking about. I mean,
This is a build.
yeah, I mean, you're built. Like it's you're in good shape. What shape is that?
You're in shape. You're in A shape.
You're in A shape.
Trapezoid.
You know, that's fine.
Rhombus.
It's an odd shape to be in.
I'm Jason. I'm just glad you're here. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yes, I am. From a couple of weeks ago, that was rough.
Yeah.
But
I haven't seen you since then. So
I know.
It's good to see you alive. And
Thank you. It's good to be on this side of the dirt.
Yes.
You know,
But
I appreciate that.
you have good color and you
Thank
look.
you.
Yes.
Yes. Well, you know what? We had a baseball tournament all weekend, and so that was fun. You know, won the championship so on Father's Day. So I said yesterday, it finally shows that my son
Happy
loves
belated.
me.
Yeah. Happy belated Father's Day.
Right. It showed me
How
that
was
he
your
loves me.
Father's Day?
It was great. I mean, we played 3 games, so we got 3 games. It was great. I mean, they
Did
won.
you remember you're a dad all that time?
It was fun. It was great. I mean, last year they lost in the championship on Father's Day, so you know, obviously they don't love us.
They liked
The
you.
dads.
At least they lost. They got there, so they liked you.
No, they just
played
wasted.
to spite you.
They just wasted our time. We could have been doing a lot of other things that day if you're just going to lose in the championship. What's the point? You know what I mean? Nobody wants a second place trophy. So they decided to go out and play well and win this one. So that was nice.
That's awesome, man.
So yeah, it was a great Father's Day. How was yours, man?
I'm not. You know me as emotional crier.
I know.
I can't go there. All I'll say is my 23-year-old left me a note because he's got to sleep. He's got the midnight shift, and you know he's working as a nurse now. And again, we play softball together, so I still get to enjoy that. But he left me a note that it is by far the greatest Father's Day gift in 23 years I had ever received. It wasn't long, but the words that he put together, that was not me getting emotional. I was choking on my spit. So but the words that he put together, it was such an honoring thing. Wow. One of those things like, man, I really needed that. But when you get something like that from your kid, like I must have done something right. So yeah, it was incredible. I was bawling at the second line of it. And I actually typed it out because the way he wrote it, you know, time can fade stuff because it was a pencil thing. And so he took the time, and he does not have very neat handwriting because he signed it, love, and then parentheses he wrote, by the looks of the handwriting, you probably know it's from ... Mac. And so I actually typed it out and folded that and then stuck it in there.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
man.
it was incredible.
That is so cool. And go ahead.
Way cooler. I didn't do anything for Father's Day because my dad decided to go to a concert in Minnesota.
Good for him.
He went to see Jet. Jet returned. You remember the band Jet? You know, Cold
Yes,
Hard
sure.
B and Roll Over DJ. And
Got it.
love Jet. Didn't even take me. Come on, Dad.
It's his day.
It's his day, and he decided, you know what? I don't want
He
you
gets to enjoy
there.
however he
Dichotomy
chooses.
of man there.
Wow, I was like, great. You know what, Dad? So for that, I maybe forgot to get you a card.
Yeah, well, you can make him one.
I called him. I gave him a call.
There you go.
Does that count, Les?
That counts.
It does.
As a son, I'm no longer. I'm not a dad.
If it filled his tank, I mean, when we get older, your kids get older, they're professional, they're doing their thing.
It's a Tesla,
Just
so
think
it's
of
not
me.
gas, I guess. So it's electric. So I can't
Recharge,
really fill
fair
that
enough.
tank.
Recharge
enough.
it. Charge your energy, man.
Fill that trunk, tank, whatever.
Yeah, just charge your energy, man.
Yeah, I know that made him feel good.
Yeah. And it's so it probably has special meaning with it being a year with you and now cancer free for a year for Les Norman.
Yep.
So that Father's Day probably feels a little bit more special for you.
Yeah. To still be on, like you had said, this side of the dirt.
Yeah.
And be able to still recognize that you're a father and get to see your kids at this age. It just went by so freaking fast. Yeah. I love talking about your son and your love for spending that time with your kids, but your boy in baseball, it brings back memories. I love seeing the joy in your face and the laughter that you get from it. You wouldn't do it if you didn't love it and if your son didn't love it.
Yeah.
And that felt like yesterday.
Wow. Yeah,
and then now, I got to sleep from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. because I got to work midnights because I'm an adult as a nurse, and what he's gone through and graduating with honors. And then my other son, doing remodeling and loving it and running, yesterday he hit a ground ball up the middle and I blinked and he was at third base. That's how fast he is. I mean, he's 6'2" and
did he
flying
apologize
around.
to the pitcher?
It was off to the side.
Okay, so he's
They
good.
still do that.
He's
though.
good though.
They
Yeah.
still do it. Yeah.
He's got Dad's genes clearly.
He might have found. Yeah, he's got my genes, but he might have had him hemmed, and because he can run maybe a little bit quicker than I did at that age. I don't know. It's close,
That
but
is
yeah.
great.
But it's just the fun of it. So yeah, it's an amazing thing to be a dad. So happy belated Father's Day to all you Yahoo fathers out there, and get to enjoy your kiddos.
Absolutely, it's awesome, and you still get out there and get to play some softball with them too. So
I do nursing a hammy right now though.
Oh really?
A bad hammy. So
You at least your son's a nurse. He can help you.
You stretch a single into a double, or first to third, trying to track one down in the outfield. What happened?
I think that it was last week is when I blew it.
Okay.
And I was on the mound, and I when they hit them little dribblers because the bases are so short. I'm like, no, not happening. And we had a force out. So I sprinted over and flipped it to third. And the next guy did the exact same thing. And so as soon as I bent down in the full sprint to get it, I was, ooh! And I felt it go. Don't know if it's probably not torn because I can still walk.
Yeah.
But I got it pretty bad because yesterday, 7 days later, the bruise started to show itself. And this morning, it's grown another 3-4 inches up the back of the leg.
Oh, no.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh God.
But
you know what?
It's all good.
You know what? Hold on. You said that, and it's funny because I pulled this clip from the Savannah Bananas game. Let's listen in to Sean Casey. Savannah Bananas were in Cincinnati.
The mayor.
Let's listen in last night to Sean Casey taking the golden at bat for the Savannah Bananas.
Over 42,000 fans on their feet for the mayor. Much like Beetlejuice, you speak his name, Sean Casey appears. And we've got his teammate, Danny Graves, up in the booth to watch him take his first live at-bat since 2008 with the Boston Red Sox.
Just please don't get hurt, Case. Don't get hurt. But I guarantee you he still rakes if they throw him a strike.
Tough task. He's up against former Los Angeles Dodgers prospect.
They did not throw him a
Jimmy
strike.
Lewis, who nearly plunks him.
Savannah Bananas game is
And
if it's
gonna
ball
be a
4, you can run.
Wow, 4 straight bad ones.
And he got
Look
past
at the
him.
mayor go. He's trying to get
Easy.
two bags.
No, stop, Case.
Wow. Slams the brakes. Always known to be fleet of foot. He's still got the wheels.
Well, I just can't believe he didn't swing at anything close.
Look at the acceleration. Boom! There he goes. I can't believe he didn't want to slide into second base.
So he waves to the crowd. They bring in a pinch runner. He walks off the field. Tore the hamstring off the bone.
Oh, he didn't. Did he really?
Surgery. Yeah, that's why he stopped. That's why he said slammed on the brakes. No, he did slam on the brakes because he couldn't.
But he didn't hobble or anything. You couldn't tell?
And now that you know, you could tell like something was going on. But he was like, hey, waving to everybody. And pinch runner comes in and gives him a high five. And you could see there was like a ginger first step. And then he was like, nope, we're getting off the field and walking and waving to everybody. And surgery taking place today. It's just he's running and then it just stops. You see him reach back and then stop. They never mentioned him sort of reaching back and touching the back of his leg and going back to first. They never mentioned that. But
Case.
the ball got away from the catcher and you can run You don't, and so he was trying to get to second base. The first base coach sent him though. First base coach was like, "Go!" So he rounded first and took off.
He was going no matter what.
Yeah.
Nothing a 50-year-old body loves more than explosive movements.
Oh man.
I believe that's the rule is 50-year-old bodies without working out or just hanging around, not really stretching. It loves explosive.
Never seen a cheetah stretch,
Yeah.
It's the old Dion line.
Yes.
I will say, Les, if you need help with your hammy, what has helped me is you get a 24-ounce Busch Light can, you rub it on the back of your hamstring right there, feels a lot better, and then you drink it, and then you feel a lot better. That you take 2 of those, I'm telling you, Les, you're gonna feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just love that Graves said. Graves said, "Just don't get injured. Just don't get injured, Casey. Just don't get injured, Mayor."
Yeah.
And then he has to have surgery for tearing the hamstring off the bone.
The cool thing is those two had the same banter. All 3 of us were on the same team in AAA with Cleveland in '97, and Graves was our closer.
Wow.
And our first baseman was Sean Casey. I mean, first day he gets called up from AA as a doubleheader, and he goes 3 for 8 with 2 home runs and 17 RBI. I mean,
the man could hit.
Yeah, the guy could just rake. But yeah, he was never. We never accused him of being fast.
Average cost, by the way, according to Google AI, the average cost of tearing your hamstring from the bone after surgery and PT is about $12,000. So that was
Is that all?
12. That might just be for the surgery.
I think that Sean did well enough in his career.
Oh
that's
yeah,
probably all right.
absolutely.
Yeah,
But
I do wonder what
about
his
25 seconds for $12K. So
Yeah.
there you go.
But you know what? I just wish, honestly, I wish they would have thrown him something to hit.
Yeah.
Nothing was close. Like the last one was at his feet and it bounced,
Right.
and the pitcher got, maybe he's, sort of mad at himself for, not throwing him a strike. Like, come on, hang one. Give him a cookie just so he can actually swing the bat. Because a lot of these golden at bats with the Savannah Bananas, guys are swinging and hitting it. A lot of ground balls.
Yeah.
They haven't been in the box for a while.
A lot of home to first in about
Yes.
the time it takes to read a chapter of a book.
Sean Casey, $41.3 million, what he made in his career. So if he's made some smart investments and didn't lose on a bunch of stuff, I think he'd be fine with that. So he gets up there and tears his hamstring, unfortunately. So you said that, I'm like, oh no,
GoFundMe.
oh no, man, I don't want you doing that.
No,
Come on.
but look, I pitched last night. I just had an agreement with the other team. We knew that, hey, are you guys okay if I pitch and just skip me in the order? Which usually,
Okay.
I can still hit, so that's probably a benefit to the other team,
Right.
For me not hitting. But we're pretty loaded with some guys that can hit. We got a real big guy that can just drop bombs, and I think he went 3 for 3 with a bunch of sac flies and two-run homers or something. But they were very kind to let me do that, and so it really wasn't that bad, except a couple lasers that came up the middle.
And they apologized, right?
Yeah.
Well, then they knew they could probably take you since you only had one healthy leg.
But here's the deal, though. I get people apologizing, and I appreciate that humility, and that's kind, and I would apologize too, but they're not trying to do it. And if I throw a pitch, I accidentally threw 2 pitches a little bit too far outside, and you have quick hands because the ball's coming in slower. So, if it's malicious, but I have never played in 3-4 years of playing slow pitch softball, I have never had anybody purposely try to hit it up the middle. And when I pitch, I backpedal about 4 or 5 steps. I'm still and I don't wear a mask because I can't be athletic with that. If I'm taking the risk of going out there and pitching, and I can throw the ball where usually, last night I made a couple mistakes, but usually you can. But get ready every pitch, or don't pitch.
Yeah.
And so I so appreciate the humility, but nobody, unless they're being malicious, ever needs to apologize to me. Seriously, you're not trying to do it, if it hits me and drills me in the head or the ribs or something and you want to apologize for the pain, I'll accept that, but not because you maliciously tried to do it.
Yeah.
When my reflexes are to the point I can't defend myself, I do not belong on the rubber and slow pitch softball.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
That's a good way of viewing it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Les Norman is our guest, breaking the norm. All right, Les, I wanted to ask you about what took place on Saturday at Kauffman Stadium after the afternoon game. Players only meeting. What happens in those? Do things get accomplished? Do they just end up being a complaint session? Do you come out maybe sometimes worse than when you went in? What happens in some of those player meetings that take place without knowing what took place in this one on Saturday, except for the players saying, "Oh, it was great, it was good," and we all, are better for it.
Yeah. I think it was necessary. It's good when it's player only because it's got to be the vibe. It gives the real leaders a chance to stand up. I think I read from Andy Rogers that like Vinny, who's a leader, didn't speak in the meeting, which is fine.
Yeah.
That's what I read. I don't know if that's
probably
true.
Speaks a lot.
Yeah, but he speaks a lot both with his actions, and I think that before the game, he had mentioned in that article that a different article that he felt like the team was carrying the weight and anxiety of not hitting well with runners in scoring position. And so I think that a meeting like that is definitely necessary. I think Bobby Witt Jr. spoke up. I'm sure Shelby might have said something. So necessary, but it doesn't guarantee that things are going to change. The result of that meeting isn't, man, we got to try harder. It's not rah-rah. It's like you're not trying harder. The purpose of those meetings, if the clubhouse is a cancer, then a purpose of a meeting like that is to root it out and hold some dudes accountable, and it might get intense, and guys might even fight. That's the old school version. This is not that Royals team. So for them, I think what it was is just, hey, let's go back to playing for fun. Let's address the issues. Bobby Witt Jr. is a young dude, but he's also the leader of that clubhouse. And so for him to lead that meeting and to stand up and say, hey, starts with me. When I'm going well, this is not an arrogant thing where he says, hey, when I'm going well, we'll go well. What he's doing is he's taking accountability. Like, I have been struggling, so I will take the lead and do my best to improve and have the right attitude and put the work in and get after it. But then there's the part like, look, we know we're struggling. It's evident. I'm not going to get down, jump on my shoulders, and let's go to work. That's the kind of thing where you may not, the next game they lost 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to say, oh, that didn't work, But in the long haul, it changes the attitude. It brings a little bit of a lighter air, and you're still going to face big league teams. I don't care if it's the A's or not. It could have been the Rockies at that time, and you still might have lost 3-2. It's baseball. It's a weird game. So if it changes the attitude and lightens up the air, and just makes guys put their heart on their sleeve and go after it, okay, then it's great.
It's baseball is such a different game from some of the other sports because. In football, you might get together and be like, guys, we're not putting in the work, or we're not putting in this or that, and go out there and play with an edge, play like more physical and more motivated, and you've got more energy there because, you're holding each other accountable, right? Basketball, sort of the same thing. You've got that you can physically overwhelm somebody if you just want it more that particular night, even if you may not be as skilled as the other team. And in baseball, it's like, you can want it as bad as worse than the other team, but it's not going to matter if you're in a slump or if the other pitcher is Tariq Skubal. If you're going out there and you're going up against Jacob deGrom,
team meeting and go solve that.
Yeah, we want it really badly. The thing is, let's
try harder.
Yeah, I don't want to do a double negative. I fully trust that these guys are putting in the work behind the scenes to try to improve and be better with runners in scoring position. So a players only meeting, I don't know, and that's why I ask you, because I don't know what it would accomplish unless there was some sort of an issue and a rift in the clubhouse that's keeping them from winning.
Yeah.
Unless they felt like maybe it was getting to the point to where the pitchers were just getting so pissed at holding and carrying the team. And
I don't
maybe
sense that.
Yeah, I was going to say, and maybe the lineup and the position players had to be like, guys, we know.
Yeah.
Let's air it all out here. We're aware. You guys have carried us. We're trying to do our part, man. This is not what we're not doing it on purpose. I don't know what that accomplishes if it is sort of a closer knit team, and you can't just say, well, now we're going to go out and work harder than the next guy.
Yeah, I'll give you a glimpse of a players only meeting that we had in '96. It's a long time ago, 30 years ago. Okay, so I get that. Again, different generation, different game, completely different clubhouse than it is right now. That meeting, that team actually near the end of the season was close to a wild card. And so we weren't having this dismal year, so it was fairly close. However, it was also a clubhouse where there were cancers in it. There was some division in there. Now, you take guys like, if we didn't have guys like Mike McFarland, Jeff Montgomery, Mark Gubiza, guys like that, that team would have buckled. It would have imploded. So it was on guys like that on their backs, and maybe one or two other guys I can't think of right now. I mean, I think Keith Lockhart might have been on that team as well.
He played second.
Yeah, and Keith wasn't just a guy that could rake. He was a quiet leader. He went about his business. He worked hard. He was a strong man of faith. And he was a guy that I didn't necessarily have a ton of conversations with, but he was still a friend. And I just watched him play. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to focus my energy on there. There were just some other guys on that team, and there was one guy that kind of spearheaded it, that it was a difficult thing. There were some guys that could have been leaders, that were well-known names in major leagues, that didn't step up and say anything. And so that's not necessarily a negative about them, that they weren't causing it. But sometimes when you have the position of leadership and respect but don't use it, I think that that's a fault. And so that team could have been better. It wasn't a 5-alarm fire, but there were some guys in there that it should have been better. And so there was one that got a little bit heated. I mean, nobody fought. It wasn't anything like that. But
was Monty the issue in the clubhouse?
Yeah,
Or it was Montgomery, wasn't it?
If Monty was an issue, then it was an issue that man, he's trying to pull us together too much. No, Jeff was great, man. That dude was the consummate leader. McFarland, the consummate leader, and Goob is the consummate leader. And I was afraid of Gooby that Gooby could sneeze and break your arm. He was so tough and rumble. But yeah, so this is not that clubhouse.
Yeah,
not at all. It's strictly wins and losses, and trying to relieve some of the pressure that they've been putting themselves on. If you look now, I think Q and especially JJ, they've done a good job. They've put a pretty good team on the field. And I don't care what Jack is hitting. Jack is nervous. The look on his face, he looks nervous when he's up there. I mean, if he was in AAA, getting called up to AAA, he'd have 5 or 6 home runs by now, So it's just a different clubhouse. They just need to take the pressure off themselves and stop looking at the wins and losses and just go out and playing it after it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can, or if you can, approach runners in scoring position the way that you may approach it if nobody's on, but it's clearly...
Here's how you do it, Jason. Yeah. Seriously. When a runner is in scoring position, in your brain, know they're going to pitch you differently, but look at a pitch that you can drive in the situation. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. But when you start thinking before the runner's in scoring position, I have to drive him in, you get anxious and start swinging at pitchers' pitches. That's what I feel like I see. I don't feel like it's this big mental thing on that side of it. It's mental worrying about it, and then physical by not having the discipline to stop swinging at pitchers' pitches. When there's a runner in scoring position, what do you think a pitcher's going to do? Oh, here's a cookie. Drive that run in. It doesn't work that way, and so that's what I see. It's simple.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back hanging out with Les Norman. Breaking the Norm presented by TruckMovers.com and First Federal Bank of Kansas City. We'll talk about manager-player relationships and a little College World Series I want to pick Les's brain about as well. More Zone coming up next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Dylan Michael, Sterling Holmes, Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com and First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Update on the College World Series as the game last night of the two teams that won in their first game, UCLA and LSU, trying to get to 2-0. It was suspended last night. It's going on right now. Top of the ninth, LSU's up 9-5 with 2 outs. So UCLA is going to have to get a big 2-out rally, or they will suffer their first loss, and then that would mean that they would face. They're going to have to play later on today as well, because the game being suspended from last night, that would put them in a matchup tonight against Arkansas. And Arkansas wins yesterday. We know that with the 19 strikeout no-hitter performance against Murray State, and LSU just finishes it off. So they move on. LSU does, to play on Wednesday against the winner of UCLA and Arkansas. But they got a day off, or well, at least the rest of the day off, I should say,
right,
while UCLA now has to play again for an elimination game. I wanted to talk to you, Les, about manager-player relationships that happen in Major League Baseball. And, there's... we talk about Matt Quatraro and whether there's complaints about Matt Quatraro or not. Like, I feel like we always preface it, and if we don't, sometimes it gets lost. But we always preface it with, like, well, yeah, he made the move to take out Noah Cameron, but also John Schreiber's got to do his job. And Taylor Clark's got to come in and do his job. Like, the manager can make the decision, but those players are getting paid, and they're professionals, and those are the spots that are typically used in.
Right.
They got to come through. The guys with runners in scoring position have to come through. Like, you're not gonna hit and run and sacrifice bunt and do some of those things to 90 wins. Yeah. Like, the players have to come through. So here's Davey Martinez. This was on Saturday. He was asked, when you look at the offense as a whole, I know you guys haven't produced like you wanted to this month, but for you, how much of this is on the players? How much is it on the coaching? And Davey Martinez, who's won a World Series with the Nationals, has a young team now. He says his answer, it's never on coaching. It's never on coaching. Coaches work their asses off every single day. We're not going to finger point and say it's on the coaches. It's never on the coaches. They work hard. The message is clear. All the work is done prior. Sometimes they go out there and they got to play the game. It's always been about the players, always. I played this game a long time. Never once did I blame a coach for anything. We worked our asses off to get better. They gave us information. We used it. These guys understand what the game is. These coaches, I've never had such a group of coaches that worked as hard as they do. They're here working due diligently. They go over everything. They sit with the players every day. These coaches, they work their asses off. Every coaching staff is like that, and the players know. Sometimes you got to put the onus on the players. They got to go out there, and they got to play the game, and they play the game the right way. We can't hit for them. We can't catch the balls for them. We can't pitch for them. We can't throw strikes for them. They got to do that. So then Sunday morning, word gets around that some of the players are kind of pissed in the clubhouse for the it's all our fault type deal. And then Davey Martinez was asked before the game about your comments yesterday. How do you hope the players received them? And he said, the players were great. I talked to them already. It wasn't on them, right? My comment was nothing about them. They know that. They read through it. Like I said, I talked to them about it. They're all good. They want to win. The biggest thing is we want to win. The clubhouse is really good. It was never about them. I never mentioned anything about players. I appreciate those players. I played. I understand how hard this game is. But the first part of it.
Wow, who was the first guy talking then?
Yeah, right. The first part of it I find to be interesting because I do think there is absolutely an element of it is on the players to go and play the game.
Yeah.
But I also wonder how Q would handle that. If it had been like, what's the, how Andy Reid, like how much is on the players, how much is on the coaches? I think there would have been a split of like, well, they got to go out there and play, but we got to do our job. Like, we got to do this. We got to put them in a better position. I think there's a way to handle it. Dave Martinez was just, I guess, being honest, how probably a lot of coaches feel. Of like, well, we're doing this. I can't hit for them. I played the game. It's not about the coaches. It's about the players.
Right. It is both. But a manager can't. You have to go and feel once in a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is a statistical game. You're getting paid on your statistics when it's all said and done. Now, there's that potential. You sign if you sign a guy that hasn't even had a full year in the big leagues yet to a 7-year deal. I mean, you're really banking on the potential you see in him, not what he's put up. But it's a combination. But maybe Davey Martinez should have said 70-30. Okay,
right.
70, and he's right in the sense that the players got to go out there and play. Mm-hmm. But how if coaching wasn't a part of it, why would you need a manager?
Right. That's what we said too.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't need it.
I think the manager in baseball may not be as important as some other sports. But if it's zero, then just have a robot or the spreadsheet,
I
do
think
the game.
I think what Davey Martinez was coming from is a player's understanding of the game. I think he was taking accountability. He just didn't say player accountability. He just didn't say it in the right way, and then the backpedal the next day made it look worse. Look, when I was in high school, the reason why I became the outfielder that I was, and I really took pride. I had a strong arm, but the accuracy that I had, the way I came around balls, the way I came through balls, the way I worked pregame, the way I worked in practice, was because when I was a young guy in high school, I went to Wrigley Field and watched Dave Martinez in pregame.
Whoa.
It was Dave Martinez.
Yeah.
And he had a guy at second base. He was in right field. And he was the only guy out there. They weren't just taking infield. They'd already taken infield and outfield. And he stayed out. And then another coach came out with a fungo, and they put a guy at third base. And he had a guy hit him fly balls, hard ground, side to side, everything. And I kid you not, 23 out of 25 balls he took were one-hoppers right on the flipping money at third base. It was unbelievable how, and it was footwork. I'm like, that dude's got to be exhausted. He hasn't even played yet. It was a hot day, and he was just out there throwing and putting that work in. I'm like, if that's what it takes to be a big league outfielder, that's what I'm going to do. And from that day forward, I busted my tail, man. And even if I'd have been 25 for 25, if I felt like I needed to take more, I would have taken more. And just watching Dave Martinez made me develop the work ethic that I needed to even get there for the short time that I got there. And so if he was just a manager that didn't play, I'm like, dude,
It's a good point about playing.
What a jerk.
Major League Baseball, it matters if you played the game in the clubhouse.
Absolutely. So I get where he's coming from. He just maybe should have tweaked what he said a little bit different, and it kind of made him look bad and made it look like, oh, now there's going to be division. Because, now by him reeling it back the second day, the feedback, like, oh, I need to do some damage control right now. And so if he awarded it different, I trust where he's coming from. It's just the general public, and if it's a young team, a younger team's probably not going to take that as well. If there had been some veterans, older, like a higher group of veterans on the team, they'd have said, heck yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
And they'd have backed him.
This is on us.
But
it's our fault.
But that's just a little bit of a bad read on his part. Maybe he had a bad day. Maybe he was going through emotion. Who knows?
Yeah, like an NBA head coach, I don't think NBA players are going, we never played in the NBA.
Yeah.
But Major League Baseball, like, if you didn't make it to the show, or at least play at a high level, there's almost like I'm pretty sure you can't really tell me like these things. There's a respect there.
Don't run your mouth.
But I mean, like, it's you've never been in this position. You've never stood there with the third deck with the pitcher, bearing down on you, or the ball that's spinning that way. You've never been in that position.
There's a rare guy that can command that audience that hasn't been there.
Yeah, there's an element of, like, in baseball, that's one of the things that you learn in following different pro teams, that there's sort of a prerequisite of being able to relate, of having played at that level.
Absolutely.
Les, you're the man. Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, man.
Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com and First Federal Bank of Kansas City. I appreciate you, brother. We will talk next week, and we'll see what the Royals look like in this 6-game road trip. Hopefully next week we're talking about a 6-game winning streak. How about that?
Just give me a 4-2. I'll take a 4-2.
I think I'll take a 3-3 right now. Just give me a 3-3.
We'll see you then, buddy.
Absolutely. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. More Zone next.
interesting guy. He likes to golf. He's been by me to golf a couple of times. When the time permits and stuff, we're gonna get out and swing some stuff.
I'm really curious what the most interesting thing is about it.
And listen, we gotta ask him.
Chris, from the way you described it, the trade situation, do you feel like you would do it differently today than you did a couple years ago with your contract?
Did I do it different?
Would you do it differently now if you had it to do again? Just from the way you're describing it, it sounds like that.
Did I do it differently when I had this?
Would you do it differently?
Would I?
Yeah.
I'm asking you, did I do it differently? You got your answer right there. Y'all take care, man.
Okay, there's an abbreviated version of Chris Jones out at Chiefs mandatory minicamp. A little early, 1:10 start for the Chiefs in the podium. So 20 minutes early for Chris Jones. You know what?
I'm used to the opposite.
I know, right? Get it done. Get after it. Get after the mandatory minicamp. Chris Jones there. Should let you know as well, we talked about it in the 11 o'clock hour. Trey Smith showed up to the minicamp. As well, here's Hollywood Brown.
Last year, was a good transition, back into football. But now being able to train and, build my body the way I want to, I've been enjoying it, though, enjoying the process.
You really made an effort to come back and did come back late last year, but how difficult was it not having, been up to speed for the first 2.5 months and maybe not having that game experience by the time you did come back? Did you feel like you were missing that when you came back?
Nah, because I wasn't, I really leaned on my faith. I wasn't coming back expecting anything. I was coming back really just trying to help whichever way I could. And that was my mindset, and that helped me, carry me through the end of last year. So I was just really grateful that I even had the opportunity to come back.
Looking back, what percent of who you think you could be do you feel like you were as far as your health, physical condition, that kind of stuff?
I wasn't my best self for sure, but like I said, I was grateful for the opportunity for them to even allow me to come back and allow me to help the team. So just build off of that and build off the experience.
I guess speeding up, where are you at from a health and strength standpoint, right now?
I'm back, 100% going. Like I said, doing my off-season work.
Where does this receiver pass catching rooms rank for you if there's a healthy Rasheed and with Xavier and with Travis?
Best I've been a part of it for sure. We compete like no other. We push each other, and we're excited for the season.
The injury you had is somewhat rare. There's a few guys that had it. Did you ever reach out to some other guys? You talk to guys like Tyreek and some others who had similar shoulder injuries like that?
Nah, not really. I just faced what was thrown in front of me for real. Trusted God, trusted docs, trainers, and here I am.
Now that you are healthy, just what do you foresee for yourself in 2025?
God willing, healthy season. It's my #1 goal. Just being able to really showcase what I can do. That's all I'm looking to do.
Last year at this time, you and Xavier hadn't been part of this offense. What's the difference when a lot of you guys in the room have been a part of the offense and you're maybe not learning it for the first time out here?
Full go. I mean, we all can go in any spots now, pushing each other, fighting for certain plays. So it's been fun just competing and not really having to think about the playbook as much as last year.
You mean fighting for who's going to get the ball? Because
certain spots we like, oh yeah, let me get that one, let me get this one. So it's been fun.
Anything else?
These days of minicamp, how important are they just to kind of set the foundation for the season?
Definitely important. I said that today. Let's set the foundation for everyone's off-season training and heading into training camp. So it's very important.
Thanks, Hollywood.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, there's Hollywood Brown. We'll also hear from Jerry Tillery and Josh Simmons there. So, yeah, this is year number 2 in the offseason for Hollywood Brown. So he's got a better understanding, you would hope, of the system, the offense, Andy Reid, how he runs things. You go in there with a little experience can make things a lot easier as opposed to you've never done it before. You don't know much about that offensive system. You don't know how he runs practices.
Yeah.
Even something like that makes a difference.
Health. Again, he mentioned it. I mean, that's what it comes down to for him. for not just for the season, for the rest of his career. I mean, if he wants to get that contract somewhere, he's had some good years, but it's been stuck with lots of injuries in between. We saw what he looked like at the end of last year with the rate that it looked like Patrick passed him the ball with the amount of time he was on the field. It was a good percentage. If that can continue over a full year, but also just that with Rasheed and Travis, and as he mentioned, Xavier Worthy, this core, it's why I'm certainly all in on a great offensive explosion.
Well, and I'm wondering and hoping that, Hollywood Brown spends the offseason last year working with Patrick Mahomes. You go through the mini camps and OTAs, and you get into training camp, and then that first game he breaks the collarbone, and then that's it until we see him later on. And what we saw early on in those first couple of games was that he was trying to feed Hollywood Brown. They weren't connecting on that. We'll see if that's different. Here's Josh Simmons.
Gone into just rehabbing and full strength. I know Rick Holder says he sees you a lot around the training around the facility.
Yeah, so just trying to be as available as I can right now, whether it's 2 days, 3 days, rehab sessions. I know Jalen Moore and those guys are working their tail off, so if they ever need a breather, I want to make sure I'm right behind them.
Josh, Andy had said a couple weeks ago that he was surprised at how quickly that you've been able to come back. Are you surprised, or is this what you anticipated for this summer?
This is kind of, what I anticipated. It's what I worked towards. I got my operation done by the Platinum Standard, knee arbitrage, so I was already feeling good about that, straight off the table. And then I have, the best in the business here, an Arrowhead Drive for rehab, so.
Seems like you're doing everything out there right now. Are you expecting to be full go with camp when the pads come on?
Just take it day by day. Whatever happens will happen.
Josh, how's the playbook part coming for you? And everything, has the learning process been good?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of different things in that we're running college, so just kind of adjusting to the speed or what I'll see, and then, obviously leaning on guys like Kingsley and, Juwan, Trey, all those guys. It'll happen.
Is it difficult with the injury stuff to navigate wanting to go as hard as you can and then just having to pull back in a sense just to make sure that you don't go too far?
Absolutely. I did before this, this time last year, I was anticipating going a lot harder, but everything happens for a reason. I trust the staff around me, the players around me, so I'm just do what I can.
You played at a high level at Ohio State and against guys in the Big Ten for a long time. What's this competition level like compared to just what you see in college?
Yeah, it's not that big, I guess, of a jump, but it is a very big jump. There's some hands, some of the moves are a lot more precise. Some of the guys know exactly where to strike you to kind of get you off balance. We had obviously straight dudes at Ohio State in practice, Jack Sawyer, JT, so I know what to anticipate, but still just a tick faster.
Sure.
The last test for you, really, it seems like at this point, is to put the pads on and have full contact. How much are you looking forward to that opportunity?
Very. Again, I wanted to be able to throw the pads on ASAP, but things happen for a reason. So whatever the staff allows me to do, I'm gonna definitely do. Really hard.
How supportive in what ways has Coach Reed kind of helped you as you go through some of this?
Really, he's been kind of talking to me every day after practice, giving me tips, and Mitchell's out there, so he's kind of been putting me together with him and just kind of being a really good support system for me.
How does it help you?
A lot. I can kind of, he'll give me tips and tricks on what to do on this play, or what Pat might do on this play that can set me up for a different angle on this play. So definitely good help.
What will the time be like for you between now and training camp?
It's day by day. Wouldn't be able to tell you at all.
Last one, anyone? Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.
So there's Josh Simmons, and saying that working here in the mandatory minicamp is what he anticipated, and saying what he worked for, that the operation was done. We've heard about the surgery being really well done a lot. It was a good surgery. I've heard that a lot since then, and we know that with the patellar it matters. But since then, this is the plan, is to be in this spot, which I think is definitely ahead of schedule for the Chiefs, but maybe not ahead of schedule for Josh Simmons. And saying this time last year, he would be wanting to be further ahead. Not the case because of the injury that happened in October. And as he said, things happen for a reason. And I would love to throw the pads on ASAP, but whatever the staff needs me to do is, essentially what I'm going to follow. And so if the pads come on in training camp. But is he going to be ready for camp? And he said day by day. Let's take it day by day, and we'll see, what happens there. But
he has been hanging out with Andy Reid a lot.
I see what it is. There it is. It's just day to day, aren't we all? He's day to day, and we all are day to day. We'll hear from Jerry Tillery, who was one of the off-season signings to come in and help out with the defensive line group and maybe offer some pass rush ability with Turk Wharton exiting to go to Carolina. They obviously draft Omar Norman Lott, but they signed Tillery before they drafted Omar Norman Lott to at least give him that somewhat of a skill set that's there.
Floor a little bit more of a known
100%.
quantity.
Yeah, you raise the floor with Jerry Tillery, and hopefully that Omar Norman Lott will help him raise the roof with them getting some sacks. That was bad, I know, but that's fine. It's just it came into my mind and I said it. All right, it popped in there. I said it. There was no filter. I took the filter off. You know what I mean? It's like these pictures that you take. Sometimes there's filter. I took no filter.
The ceiling got raised. Norman Lott.
Well, that was better. That was better. Yeah, ceiling is the roof, as MJ would tell you. But
I really like the Jerry Tillery move. Again, it's one of those ones where they liked him a lot coming out of college. I know a lot of Chiefs fans, myself included, were excited when he came out, and the intrigue of, oh, you put him next to Chris Jones, that would be insane. And then the production hasn't quite been there, but who knows? Change of scenery might be good for Jerry Tillery.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You're listening to Sports Radio 810 at WHB Kansas City. We'll hear from Jerry Tillery, as we were mentioning, coming up here in just a little bit, the offseason signing. When Chris Jones was talking, he was asked about Trey Smith being at camp, and he had the fun quote that he ended with, if you didn't hear it, and said, well, I'm glad he's not taking the approach that I did.
Yeah.
He's not taking the same approach that I did.
And he kept getting asked about, so would you have done it differently? And he's like, done what?
Done what differently? Done what? It. You know what it is? Come on, it. What have you done? It. The contract, the holdout.
We have jovial Chris Jones because his season hasn't grinded down on him yet.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's exactly right. Sometimes you don't get that.
We have fun, Chris.
Yes.
He's going to pretend like he has no idea what you're talking about in regards to his contract.
Yes. But he said he's a little older. Time to get after it. Lose a little weight, Chris Jones said. So we'll see what these OTAs end up looking like. But
is there going to be every single year one guy that needs to lose? Like last year's Travis, is this year going to be Chris Jones? He's put a little, LBs down.
Did we say that last year was Travis? Because I feel like this year
was
Travis.
We didn't. Yes. True.
So maybe it's like this year. I don't know. But I thought it was funny. It was kind of the mic drop from Chris Jones that it's good he didn't take my approach. He shouldn't take any advice from me about Trey Smith. So, yeah. It wasn't the best holdout for Chris. It didn't necessarily work out in his favor with what he ended up getting after missing the game. He had to work and play the first half of the last game of the season when everybody else was sitting so that he could get the sack that ultimately got him back to where he would have been, if he did not hold out. And then he got the big payday after the that season in the next offseason.
Also, semi-throwing your agents under the bus, too. Well, right? I mean, I'm not saying he's wrong, but he stuck with those guys, right? He stuck with the cat. So that was a little interesting. It's like, hey, you're loyal at least, I guess.
That didn't do the dumb thing that I did.
Yeah.
I
got bad advice.
Yeah. He shouldn't take advice from me, from the people I took advice from,
But we're going to keep him on as...
Yeah, keep listening to your... advisors, Trey. It's very smart. Different situation, though.
Yeah.
Because Chris Jones was already under contract, and he wanted a new deal before the last year
at least 1% wrong.
Yes, he was. Exactly. Shamar Stewart would tell you that Trey Hendrickson is at least 1% wrong, but he's 99% right. Trey Smith, again, I don't know that not showing up would just, to me, say that it's contentious, that he's trying to send a message to the front office. Him showing up is like, okay, they're, how close they are to a deal. They're working through it. We'll see. But when you're on the franchise tag, it's a different situation because, once July 15th comes and goes, you don't have a choice. You have to then play under that franchise tag. So sitting out mandatory minicamp when it's still a month away from getting something done and deadline spur action, what's the point of doing that? You're just going to cost yourself $100,000. And you're playing this year. You're going to be at training camp. Because again, different when you're on the last year of a contract and you want a new one. Well, you don't know that I'm going to be at training camp because I ain't showing up to mandatory minicamp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we need to get this thing done because I'm going to hold out at training camp. So we And I may hold out into the season. You never know. There is no, there is no, that is not part of a strategy for Trey Smith. It's not ammo that he has to be able to use holding out in training camp in his favor. He can't. It does him no good. He just gets fined for the sake of being fined. They cannot give you a long-term extension once the deadline passes.
Yeah.
So training camp comes, you got to do what you got to do. You're going to go and play on the franchise tag. So I do think it's a little bit of it's a different situation than what Chris Jones was in. It makes more sense that Trey Smith is at mandatory minicamp with his situation than it did for Chris Jones than his situation when he was using that as the bargaining chip of I can still hold out this year because I got a year left on my contract.
Again, I think the main two things are Chris Jones up to the point had made money, so if he loses some money, it's okay because he's made money. Trey Smith on that 6th-round rookie contract.
Luckily, he got the escalator up to
He got the
$6
escalator,
million.
but still, it's not the same amount that Chris Jones had made to that point. And then two, there's always going to be a difference when you're a guard versus a defensive tackle, a superstar defensive tackle.
Well, speaking of defensive tackle, here's Jerry Tillery.
Oh, wow. Did he really say that? Okay, so is that the question?
What's the most interesting thing about it?
Oh, wow, that's a tough one. But I just think the way I approach, my work, my life, it's all about, doing the best thing for myself, my family, those around me. And so I'm looking forward to getting on the field with Chris and doing some interesting things out there.
You've traveled around the world, and how many languages do you speak?
Well, let me see, 2 well, but 3, I'm working on a 3rd, so.
I know you speak Japanese, so what's the 3rd one?
Spanish, yeah.
We're working on maybe Portuguese for Brazil? Or?
Well, I think Portuguese is pretty close to Spanish, so there's a little bit of a similarity in the verb conjugations, but it's all the same, the Romance languages, so.
Have you ever been to Brazil, or is that going to be a new
First time in Brazil, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
What started all that, as far as the traveling? It sounds like was it back in college at Notre Dame?
It was, in fact, yeah. I studied abroad my freshman year at Notre Dame, and that kind of opened up the world, literally, for me, and so took it from there and ran with it.
Jerry, what's been the most interesting thing about joining the Chiefs, or something different than what you've experienced before?
Well, I think all organizations do this a little bit differently, right? Like you can sort of tell the priorities of a place by where they invest and how they structure the days, and the Chiefs do it right. I think the success speaks for itself, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
When you say do it right, can you elaborate on that other than they're obviously winning a lot of games?
Sure, yeah. I think, the way we come to work focused every day, there's a very high level of expectations on everybody, and it's important to buy in quickly, which I think that I have, and the coaches are tough, and they're hard. The practices are difficult, but it's all geared towards winning, towards getting the best out of yourself, and that's why I'm here.
What's distinctive about Joe Collins' coaching style? Some things you can point to?
Yeah, aside from the accent, it's I think he is a great coach. I think he knows the game really well. He's very personable. People forget about the personal aspect of playing this game. It's a very we're all human, and I think we work the best with people we like. And Coach Cullen is very likable, and so I'm looking forward to working with him.
How did you see that side of him?
On the field, he's he runs it really well, and the drills and the techniques that we practice show up all over the tape, and that's what you want, right? Not to be doing something that's pointless or you don't really see a good benefit from. And Coach Cullen stays away from the things that we don't need, and he hammers what shows up on tape, and so I think that's why his D lines have performed the way that they have, and I'm happy to be in the mix.
You and Chris have been rivals over the years, but what have you learned about him being now a teammate with you?
Well, I mean, just first, he's gifted physically.
Mentally, he knows the game, this defense like the back of his hand, and that allows you to play freer and have your best stuff every play, which he really does. And the Chris Jones rushing the passer is really something to behold. And we all have something to learn from him. And so I'm blessed to be working with him every day. And so I'm looking forward to doing that.
Last one, anyone? Thanks, Jared.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, there's Jerry Tillery, the most interesting man, according to Chris Jones. And will be interesting maybe to get to know Jerry Tillery a little bit more as he's at the podium. Speaks 2 languages fluently, and he's working on a 3rd one. So he speaks English right there, nailed it, and also Japanese, and then he's working on Spanish now. English and Japanese he speaks fluently, and working on Spanish. And then they ask a little bit, you're going to work on, maybe Portuguese if you're going to go to Brazil. And he was like, that's sort of all the same, sort of that verb, noun, conjugation. Is the love languages that are there. So what, you going to learn some French?
I'm now in agreement with Chris Jones. That was fascinating. He seems like such an interesting dude.
Yeah.
It's funny, you see a guy who's, 6'6", 295, but just, I don't know, you get the 6'6", 295, defensive tackle, football, all this stuff, but then you see the intelligence that radiates and permeates throughout Jerry Tillery. That was one of the first times I've really heard a presser from him, and I'm enamored. I want to hear more of Jerry Tillery. I just his thoughts on Joe Cullen and how you want to play for a guy that you like. It's just human nature and that side of the equation. So that was a fascinating and enlightening presser by Tillery there.
It's always wondering what players will say when they come to the Chiefs, and people around here and those in the media, and whether it be fans or analysts, talk about the Chiefs and Andy Reid. And we've heard so many different players show up to training camp and go, yeah, it's different here, and there are things that Andy Reid's reputation precedes himself when it's about what those practices are going to be like at training camp. And so when he said, they do things the right way around here, I'm glad that Adam Teicher said, okay, follow up. What does that mean that they do things the right way? And you always want to avoid a player when it's like they do things the right way to not then ask a follow-up that puts them in a position to where they're talking bad about the other team they were with. Because, well, did that team not do it the right way? Well, no, I'm just saying they do it the right way. Doesn't mean that another team didn't do it the right way. Just that they do it the right way. And Adam Teicher's like, what do you mean? What are some things that you look at that they do it the right way? And he talked about the work that they put in. He said there's focus, the expectations are there, you've got to buy in quickly, the coaches are hard on you, the practices are difficult, but it's all geared to getting the best out of you. From Jerry Tillery about his early time with the Chiefs. And he hasn't even gone to training camp yet, which is typically where players are like, yeah, this is the hardest training camp I've been to.
Well, I also loved he mentioned Joe Cullen. You're not going to do things that are wasted.
Yeah.
No focus on the wasted things that don't matter. Is it difficult? Yes, but everything has a specific purpose. You're not doing something dumb for the sake of just pretending like you're doing work. Everything has a reason for why. Obviously, it helps when you're always going to the playoffs and you've won 9 straight AFC West titles and you're going to all these Super Bowls. Well, the results speak for themselves and it's easier to get the buy-in. But even a guy like this who's now on his fourth team, and it was Chargers, Raiders, Vikings, now Chiefs. But just the understanding of what it takes to get to the pinnacle. I was impressed, and again, it's why the Chiefs and all these players, that when they come to KC, they know it's hard, but there's a reason why it's hard.
And also, there's the carrot out there that you join an organization where I don't know how often he's been at a team. I mean, the Vikings, he joined them after, they had the disappointing end of the playoffs in 2023. So he joins them in 2024 that, they're going to take this next step now. They got J.J. McCarthy. They're going to, move into this next realm. And that did not happen. But you join the Chiefs. It's a team that's been to the Super Bowl 3 straight years, and as long as Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback, they're going to the championship game of the conference. So you join the organization, you know that you are joining a team that has as good as any team in the NFL to win the Super Bowl. So you want to win a ring, you want to be a part of it. As he said, the buy-in happens quickly. Because if you don't buy in, then they will buy you out of your contract and you'll go somewhere else. So you buy in and you get bought out. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. We'll talk some more Kansas City Chiefs as they finish up day one of their OTAs. Trey Smith in camp, Travis Kelce in camp. We hear from Chris Jones, Jerry Tillery, Hollywood Brown, Josh Simmons, and some other things as we continue rolling along. The Royals get their game one of a 6-game road trip underway tonight, 7:05 against the Texas Rangers. Seth Lugo and Jack Leiter. More Zone rolling along next. Chris Jones, Jerry Tillery, Hollywood Brown, and Joshua Simmons. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of attention on Joshua Simmons just simply because of the difference he can make at the offensive line if he's healthy. And it isn't, look, I mean, him saying, even if this wasn't, I think he'd still say the same, but him saying this is what he anticipated that he would be participating in the OTAs and the minicamp in the team portion after he had the surgery. And I think after you have the surgery and you talk to the doctors and what the prognosis is going to be moving forward with your rehab, if they tell you that, hey, by, May and June, you can be doing something that, if you're whatever team you're with can be doing some team things, but maybe not put on the pads. But if that's the case, then yeah, I think I could be out there participating in team activities and team drills that we're not fully padded up. We're not going through contact drills. We're not having full contact practices like they'll have at training camp. When they have those 2-a-days, and 3 of them I think they're allowed to have, when it used to be every day was a 2-a-day, full pads, back in going up to Wisconsin back in the early 90s and Marty training camps.
Oh,
and it's like, you got full pads and you're going at it. Full pads, 11 on 11 for 2-a-days.
Well, and let's be real now. There has to be at least something to it because those teams would fizzle out in the playoffs. And these teams are still semi-fresh.
Well, I think there was a lot of teams that did that, like not just Marty.
I know,
that was just the mentality of like football back then. Like you're just going, it's 2-a-days, and you put on the pads. How are you supposed to get ready for the season if you're not tackling and hitting? That's how you get ready for the season.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that clearly it's worked for this iteration of Kansas City. You can see that they look fresher later into the season.
But they also look ready at the beginning of the season, though. Like they
also true too.
Like we talk about Zach Taylor and the Cincinnati Bengals and how awful they are in September. Well, it's the exact opposite for the Chiefs and how awesome they are in September. Like, they are not playing catch-up and 3 games out and having to win 7 in a row to try to make the playoffs or win a division like we've seen the Bengals have to do the last couple 3 years. Because they're starting off 3-0 or 4-0 or 3-1 or, 2-1 at worst, it seems like, in September. And I think that's part of the training camp and how hard it is, the practices. But it's also part of it. You mentioned something with Jerry Tillery talking about Joe Cullen, defensive line coach, and saying, it's efficient, there's nothing wasted, right? Everything that you're doing is for a reason. Well, that's working for Andy Reid. Like, you're not going to work for Andy Reid and not be that. Like, every one of his practices. When players talk about how difficult, quote unquote, the training camp practices are, and I have no doubt they are, but it's a relative term because I'll tell you that Tim Grunhard probably say, yeah, I'm watching these training camp practices. That ain't difficult compared to what we went through back in the day and what we did at Notre Dame with Lou Holtz and those, fall camp practices. What they're doing ain't difficult. But comparatively speaking,
like pledgeship. Everyone, my pledgeship was so much harder.
It's like every generation. It's like, oh, a generation after us are so soft.
They're so soft.
Oh, man, so soft. Millennials, don't even get me started on millennials. Are you kidding me? Gen Alpha? Or Gen Z? Gen Z. Gen Alpha? The worst. I don't know. It's my... Are the Gen Zs talking about... What's Gen Alpha? Is that...
I think you're a kid.
Is that Gen Alpha, my son?
I don't know what your son is, but maybe.
It's 2015. I think that's Alpha. That's Alpha. I'll tell you what, man. When Gen Beta gets here, the worst.
Bunch of betas, am I right?
Beta, do not be a part of that group. But it's a little bit like that, yes. But the training camp, how hard or easy something is relative to the other teams. So you might be going through a training camp with another team, and then you get to the Chiefs, and they're still going by what the CBA allows them to do. And they go, well, this is actually kind of hard. Why? Well, because there's not a lot of standing around. You get on the practice field with Andy Reid, and you will be going station to station to station until it's over. You got an hour and a half on the practice field, you're going to work for an hour and a half. You got 2 hours, you're going to work for 2 hours. Where there might be some other teams, I don't know, I've never watched another team's training camp practice. So I don't know. But it's not a coincidence that each player that gets to Kansas City and goes to the training camp and is talking about at the end of the camp practice, like, yeah, that's pretty difficult, because it's efficient. And he also does the long drive drills, which Jason Kelce and Travis Kelce still talk about on the podcast that Jason Kelce still hates. But Matt Derrick did bring up and say, maybe there's the evolving of Andy Reid in his age that those long drive drills with Jason Kelce and the Eagles used to be like 20-play drives. Those long drive drills were 20 plays. And Matt's like, well, now they're kind of 14. You know, you might have one thrown in that's like a 17, but that's what everybody dreads is the training camp practice. It's long drive day. So you've got those, you're grinding through a 20-play drive where you're not getting any substitutions, especially for the offensive line. Or if you're the defensive line or something like that. You're going through what is a long drive.
Pretty toasty.
Yes.
Out there in St. Joe.
Absolutely, and it can be that. But maybe not as many consecutive plays now. But hearing, you know,
Base Camp Fitness.
Yeah.
Shout out Lebo. There's no off period. Your off period is doing squats or ripping it on the bike.
Your off period is when you skip core.
I do skip core.
I know you do.
I have to be here. What do you want, Jason? Do you want me here or do you want me to do core?
Oh, so is the only time base camp is open? Is it 6 or 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning?
I'm not going at 6 a.m. No.
Oh, okay. So what time do you go?
9.
So you go at 9 o'clock.
They don't have an 8, okay? I wish there's a 9.
So you go at 9 o'clock, and because you go at 9 o'clock, then you have your excuse to skip core, as opposed to maybe going at 6 o'clock and being able to knock out core and still be here on time.
Dylan, you think I'm a... Dylan's shaking your head. Yes, I'm not going at 6 a.m. It's not going to happen.
Dylan goes at 6 a.m.
He's a psycho. Look at him. He's in great shape. I'm trying to be in fine shape. Okay? I'm trying to be in moderately okay shape.
I'm just trying to be in okay shape. He's in great shape.
Yeah.
I will come to Sterling's defense. I would like them to put an 8 a.m. class. I know that they probably have a little break there. I understand they work very hard over at Base Camp Fitness.
Like a 5, a 6, a 7, they're like 8 o'clock?
No, they don't have a 7 because I would be at... They go from 6 to 9 o'clock. So.
Okay.
And so I'm not doing the 6er. I'll do the 9er.
I understand.
Okay?
I did that
But doing the 9er also allows you to skip core.
Correct.
It also allows you to have an excuse to skip core.
I'll skip the first 5 minutes of this show if you want me to. I'll do it. I'll do it and do core.
But the first 5 minutes is the core of the show.
Yeah, it's true.
So pick your core.
He needs to go 15 minutes early, ask what core is going to be, do the core right before, because there's no class before.
Last time I did it here in this because Levo was like, we did 38 of this and 38 of this, and so I was like, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah, I prefer you not doing that. So whatever it is to not do core here in the studio,
Why?
I prefer that.
What's wrong with me going tarps off and doing it on this floor that people have stepped on for years?
Wearing only spandex was a little much. That I think you went a little bit too
And the baby
involved.
oil, that was much.
That was.
I thought it looked good. I was glistening.
Yeah, but I think that was just for show. I don't even think you needed the baby oil there because you were working out here in the studio.
Try and get the turkey vulture's attention.
It got your attention.
Let it know.
It did. It got the attention of the turkey vulture, and it was like, you know what? Looks like something
Intern saw him this morning.
Looks like something I kind of want to tear apart. Looks like something I want to, dig into that rib cage there.
Let
me see what's underneath there.
Interns didn't believe me. This morning I gathered them around and waltzed them in here and said, look at that turkey vulture. And they said, that's a pretty bird.
No, they did not.
And that's when I knew I'm scared of these interns. Because if you think that was a good-looking bird,
bird is diabolical, man.
It was just sitting right there on that little ledge,
it eats
staring us down.
It eats other birds.
It smells death in the air.
Yeah. That face, I'm telling you, that turkey vulture ripped off another turkey's face and is wearing it as a leather mask. Look at that. That's what it looks like. I'm telling you, man. It's that turkey
Wasn't
vulture.
that Silence of the Lambs?
The turkey vulture is looking at other turkey vultures. Puts the lotion in the basket. Puts the lotion on its
the
skin.
hose again.
What you do me, I do me. It's from Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, I know. And then you also went with the Silent Bob.
What are you talking about?
No, I know what you're talking about. Silence of the Lambs. What's the movie? Not Dude, I Lost My Car.
Are you talking about Jay and Silent Bob?
Yeah.
That's Dogma.
No.
That's the original.
No, you know what I'm talking about. Come on.
No.
I don't know what.
Unless it's Clerks that you're thinking.
Clerks.
No,
Thank you.
my bad.
Clerks.
Clerks was the
Because
original.
they do the remake of that. Yeah. Thank you.
I said Dogma was the original. That is not correct.
Right, but I went with the actual movie, and you said, "Oh, that's from."
Sorry, moving
the
on.
remake.
Moving
of
on.
Said scene.
Moving on.
Like that's why I'm confused. I'm like, that's
that's the original. Clerks was the.
Right, but that's the point. I say it, and it's like from Silence of the Lambs. Like, oh, what's that from? What movie is that? Oh, it puts the lotion on its skin, or it gets the hose skin. Oh, yeah, Clerks. No, it's not from Clerks. It's from Silence of the
Also,
From Clerks is I'm not even supposed to be here today. Chuli's gum. Try some of this. Hold on, you're a gum salesman the whole time? It's a lot of things from Clerks that you can take away from that. I'm not even supposed to be here today. They weren't even supposed to start the press conference till 1:10. They started at 12:45 with Chris Jones. How about Chris Jones being like 25 minutes early? Usually we're waiting on Chris Jones for like 25
Maybe this is
minutes.
Andy Reid having easier practices now. Could be.
There it is. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. The College World Series, LSU won the suspended game from last night. They finished it up today against UCLA. They are 2-0. UCLA will play Arkansas later tonight. It is Oregon State and Louisville starting or playing right now, or maybe in a little bit. I don't know. It might have got delayed since that first game didn't get over till like 12:45. So they'll get underway here in a little bit. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll hear from Gage Wood, who pitched the best game in College World Series in Omaha history. We'll hear from him coming up next. You know, one of the things I was going to talk with Les Norman about, but then Greg Gurley went and ruined everything.
Typical.
Freaking Gurley, man. I mean, just stay in your lane, dude. Like, stay in your lane. This is my show. All right, I'm talking to Les Norman for the hour.
Guy hadn't heard himself on air for a couple months, and he's just
Good point. Good point. Then he's going to go on Breaking the Norm with Les, and he's like, oh, yeah, no, Les has to do one less segment with Jason to accommodate me.
We really did get Les Norman.
We did, yeah, thanks to Greg Gurley, you know? And this is where Nate would step in and go, yeah, but we've been getting more of Greg Gurley over the years. So Nate would have that line since they have their fun back and forth that they have with each other. that would be cool. But one of the things I was going to talk to Les Norman about was the College World Series going on and Arkansas in an elimination game. This was pretty cool hearing from Gage Wood. This is the final out and then the interview that he did on the field after the game.
The 1-2. Swing and a miss! Greatness from Gage! A no-hitter!
You just came over here, gave a hug to Connor Cunningham. Why?
Because I work out with that guy in the off season, and I didn't expect to see him here. And I got to play against him. He got there a year late than from when I graduated, but I work out with that guy in the off season. He's a grinder. He works his tail off every day, and he's my scramble buddy too. And I'm looking forward to working with him every off season going forward. He's gonna be he's gonna get drafted one day. He's a solid shortstop. I think he was freshman of the year for them. So of course I'm gonna go over there and talk to my guy. I'm on cloud 9 and their season ended, but I'm gonna go tell him I love him. Great job and keep working.
You just threw the third no-hitter in the history of this event. How do you describe your emotions?
I shouldn't have hit the guy. That's it. That's all I gotta say.
When did you realize something special was happening?
I didn't throw a pitch out of the stretch for a while, and I was like, oh.
And your fastball, how did that feel to you?
It was coming out pretty good, it felt like today. It's nice and warm, so I was feeling pretty good.
Your family's here watching. We saw pictures of them and their emotions. How meaningful have they been to you in your journey?
They're everything. They sacrifice a lot of time and money and everything to take me all over the country to play baseball. And I can't thank them enough. And even my high school coaches that are here right now, my high school strength coach, I wouldn't be where I am today without Price Holmes.
Yeah, you're an Arkansas kid. You're representing Arkansas. What's this program meant to you?
It's everything, it's the only thing I'm focused on. We got to keep winning, we want the whole thing.
Hey, last one in this elimination game. Dave Van Horn has talked to you guys about how bad he wants this for you. What does he mean to you in this program?
It's everything, like everybody says. There's one thing missing in that trophy room of his. He's going to go down as one of the baseball legends. And every day we're working to get that for him.
Congratulations.
We're going to give up quick.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It was a cool scene, and I didn't know the backstory about him and Connor Cunningham, the shortstop from Murray State, that they went to the same high school, but they never played together. They missed each other by a year. But because they go and work out in the offseason, they've now become, workout buddies in the offseason. And apparently that's a scramble partner too, which, look, man, your scramble partner, that's your ride or die, right?
That's huge.
Sterling, that's your ace. You got a scramble partner. You're going to do whatever it takes for that guy, except allow him to get a hit.
I can't let that happen.
In his College World Series game. That was disappointing. Kind of selfish from Gage Wood to not, throwing up there. You're winning. You're going to win the game, right? It's not a big deal.
That's
you're gonna
wild
be
that what he said, though, is I shouldn't hit that
picks.
guy.
That was it. What do you have
take
to say
away?
for
Yeah.
the 19 strikeout no-hitter? Shouldn't have hit the guy. On the back foot breaking pitch, that did hit the back foot on the curveball. But he said in the post-game press conference, which, you get to the level with Arkansas, how good they are, and the number 3 overall seed still, the highest ranked team remaining, and they'll have another elimination game tonight against UCLA. He's not going to pitch. It's not softball, But he said in the post-game press conference that, he just kept hearing, fastball middle in his ear, fastball middle, and just kept throwing that. And he's got a decent curveball that can be a plus pitch as a Major League Baseball pitcher. But his fastball, on the Scout scale of 20 to 80, to give you a reference point for those that may not be as versed, Jack Caglione's power on a 20-80 Scout scale is a 70. So to show you what that means to have that graded of his power is a 70.
Elite.
Gage Wood's fastball is a 70. The 20-80 scale, his fastball is a 70. because he can work up to 98 if he wants to. But it's like arm angle, the run, the crazy amounts of swing and miss in and outside of the zone. Like, there's a lot of things that go along with it, and it's not a surprise that he goes out there and strikes out 19 guys and is predominantly just throwing his fastball because it's so much swing and miss for him. And it was interesting because Baseball America wrote about him yesterday morning about they were talking about guys that can make more of a name for themselves, and he was the one that was listed, or one of the players that was listed was Gage Wood, pitcher, Arkansas, can jump pretty decently in the first round. Not only jump into the first round, but can make a real severe jump in the first round depending on how he performs. And let me tell you, you can grade out pitches because I think his curveball is like a 55, so it can grow into a plus pitch. But the fastball is obviously what he lives on, the 70 graded scale fastball. You can grade some of those things out and scout it. But what you don't really know is, what happens when somebody is put into the fire. Gary Pinkel used to say, "You don't. Quarterbacks are like tea bags. You don't know what you have until you put them in hot water." It's true. You don't know what you have until you put them in hot water. And he said that all the time. You've got Gage Wood, that's going to be, a first-round draft pick. Biggest game of his life. Elimination game for Arkansas. Favorites to win the College World Series there at Omaha. Going out on the field, everybody watching, and throws a no-hitter with 19 Ks. Kind of tells you something about his makeup, right? And how he's built, that's the way he approached that game. The best game of his life was in the biggest moment of his life, where he had to pitch that way, or they're going home and they're ending their season. So, you want to talk about, it's not just earning money. Like, nobody's going to look at that and go, wow, he's got a really good fastball. The scouts already knew that. You already know he's got a really good fastball. He can live on that. But in that moment, what you're doing, locating, placing your pitches, the pitch sequence, staying locked in, to have the no-hitter. There's something about that guy's ability on the mound when the moment is big.
But
it's not
huge
a playoff game.
black eye to collapse when in hitting the batter.
That's right.
Huge, got a
inning.
massive knock against him.
Yep, that's true. Eighth inning, that was rough.
Might not draft him anymore unless the Royals got him. I wouldn't draft him.
I wouldn't take him at 24, 25, wherever they're drafting. I can't even remember. It's funny, if they were drafting in the top 10, I would tell you exactly what number they're drafting at.
Yes.
But they're in the 20s. Where are they drafting this year? Drafting somewhere in the first round.
I think it's too risky because he hit a guy. I would only draft. Well, the Royals won't take him because he hit a guy, and they don't like to enforce. So, not a Royal.
That's pretty good. I actually do appreciate that. It's pretty good, Sterling.
Thank you.
Hold on, that guy hit a guy. I don't care if he did it. 23, pick number 23 for the Royals. I don't care if he did it on purpose or not.
Can't draft that.
Nope. 20. By the way, I should point out 23 and 28 are their selections because 28 for Bobby Witt Jr.
Thank you, Bobby.
So thank you, Robert, and thank you, Royals, for bringing him up to break camp in 2022. He starts opening day at third base, and we'll see what they get out of pick number 28 for the Royals this year. But they got pick 23. Maybe they end up with Gage Wood. Maybe we're talking about this guy. And the thing about these college players, man, is that I get older, they stay the same age. Yes, they do. Let me tell you. That's what I love about these college players. I get older, they stay the same age. Yes, they do. Is that we're seeing them quicker to the big leagues than we've ever seen it before.
The progression has been insane. I mean,
yes.
You're right. The Angels were almost at the forefront of this, but now it seems like every team, the Royals have done it now. You're looking at the Athletics. They're obviously doing it right now.
With Houston.
Yeah. Wyatt Langford down there and
camp with the Rangers.
And the Rangers. So, yeah, it's no longer, we got to sit for 2 years in the minors because college baseball has grown into a system of its own.
Yep. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. And I want to play this clip that came across my timeline during the show today at one of the commercial breaks. And we happen to be talking about Max Scherzer in the commercial break. Dylan and I were, because Max Scherzer lost his perfect game by hitting a batter with 2 outs in the ninth. And not only hitting a batter, the dude leaned in with his elbow to get hit.
Yep.
Which should mean the next time he's up, he gets one right in the rib. Maybe the next 3 or 4 times he's up, he gets one right in the ribs. Like, that's just not, you just don't do that.
For life.
Yeah, you just don't do that. You
That's
don't.
that's a life
don't lean into
drilled segment.
Dude's got a perfect game going with 2 outs in the 9th. You don't lean into it. So we were talking about Max Scherzer losing it that way, just as Gage would in the 8th inning, though. And this came across my timeline, which I thought, well, that's odd that happens. Maybe it's AI. I'm not sure. But it was a really interesting clip about veterans to youngsters and the handing of the baton when we didn't really know that was what was going to happen. I'll explain, and we'll hear that next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, heading up until 2 o'clock. The program comes your way at 2 o'clock, and then Game 6 tonight, Edmonton at Florida. NHL playoffs, 3-2 Panthers lead in that one. So, you know what this is tonight, Sterling? It's a must-win game for the Oilers. Must-win game for Edmonton.
Pivotal. Some
it's a very pivotal game.
Pivotal.
It's really pivotal. I mean, if you want to have 7 games, if you're Edmonton, you must win tonight. Florida it's not a must win for Florida. You know, they must win one of the next 2.
It's a like to win.
It's not even our sport either.
Right.
Edmonton needs it a lot more than Florida.
Right. For the Panthers tonight, it's a prefer to win game.
Yeah.
You know, for Edmonton, it's a must-win game.
Go Florida, USA, baby. Beat the Canadians. Well, I guess the Oilers, but from Canada. Let's go.
And again, don't look at the rosters of who actually plays on Florida or Edmonton, for
Hey.
that matter. There's not a lot of Canadians on Edmonton either.
That's true.
Hey, we'll buy the best players, baby.
Oh, yeah,
USA.
absolutely.
USA.
It's like Blue
USA.
Chips. Happy. He had the best players money could buy. The best players money could buy. Now kids watch Blue Chips are like, what's the problem here? Hold on, what's the deal? Aren't they just getting NIL? What's?
It's just NIL, Jason.
These guys are cheap.
Dude, all Ricky Rowe asked for was $10,000 and a tractor.
Don't they? He's worth more than that.
Yeah. Gave his mom a house. That's fine. The house, like, PJ Haggerty can give his mom a house now. He's got $2 million. What kind of house is he gonna buy? You know?
Taxes.
Neon Bordeaux only got a car. He only got a car. He didn't even want the car. He just wanted to, perform better on his SATs. They're culturally biased. Those things are. This came across my timeline. We were talking about Max Scherzer, and reminded me of one of the games that took place when we didn't know it was a passing of the baton, although we knew there was a lot of promise for a couple of young pitchers, and we knew that the older pitchers were at the end of their time. But this was Diamondbacks, and it was the Dodgers that were facing off against each other, because Vin Scully on the call. And so anytime we get to hear Vin Scully, let's hear Vin Scully as he lets everybody know what's going on in the first inning.
And makes the catch for the out. So a fly ball to right, one down. Well, supposedly we were going to have two veterans. A 44-year-old Randy Johnson, he'll be 45 next week with all of his victories, 294. 42-year-old Greg Maddux with 354 victories. But under the headline and heading of the best laid plans of mice and men, we have a 24-year-old Scherzer with no wins and a 20-year-old Kershaw with 3. What a difference a day makes. Anyway, we were talking about heterochromia. The right-hander Scherzer delivers, and the pitch off the plate to Ethier, ball 1.
Best laid plans. We were going to get Randy Johnson versus Greg Maddux, and that didn't work out. Instead, we get Max Scherzer and Clayton Kershaw. That are a 23-year-old Max Scherzer and a 20-year-old Clayton Kershaw.
So, what was it? 294 plus 354.
315. Or was it 350?
I think it's 354.
I don't know. I was.
That's a lot of wins to 3.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The simple math says it's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of wins.
Also, shout out Andre Ethier for getting in that clip as well.
Shout out hearing Vin Scully talk anytime, man. Anytime. It's just so relaxing. Yes, it just puts you in a different place for baseball when you hear Vin Scully's voice.
What's insane is it's still Randy and Greg, but you could have made the case that Kershaw's injuries took a toll, but that Kershaw and Scherzer would have been equal to those two, and maybe you still look at some of the more underlying numbers.
I wonder if at the time you're like, getting ready to take the kids. Like, kids, we're going out to the game. You got to watch these guys on the mound. These are two of the greatest pitchers that you'll ever see. We're showing up today. We're going to watch Randy Johnson versus Greg Maddux. And then you get there and you're like, freaking Scherzer, Max Scherzer?
He's got 2 different colored eyes.
And Kershaw, like, I'm sorry, kids. Don't worry about these pitchers here. All right, they're not the pitchers that I told you that are
Quad A guys.
2 of the best we've ever seen in Johnson and Maddux.
Not the droids we're looking for.
Yes, these are not the droids that we're looking for.
You thought you were seeing 2 Hall of Famers, and you went and saw 2 Hall of Famers.
They were combined 43 years old. Randy Johnson turns 45 next week. They were a combined 43. We'll get out of here. Enjoy the rest of the day and the night right here on Sports Radio 810.